The Hogwarts professor mixed into Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 Magic Radiation Theory. Something is wrong today. Peter Parker thought silently in his heart, but he couldn't tell what was wrong. In short, he just felt a little awkward, especially when he saw that there were only a few customers in the entire book cafe except himself. His inner intuition kept reminding him. It seemed that something was distorted. However, looking at the photo taken with Tony Stark in his hand, a sense of surprise came over him, and Peter immediately threw the thoughts in his mind behind him. This photo was taken with great difficulty, and he must cherish it. Well, he must not let anyone know. This is a secret of his own. Should he let his Aunt May know? Peter thought about it, struggling and hesitating. Should he? He seemed to have promised May before that he would not pester Tony Stark. If he told her, would he be scolded? It would be better not to tell her. But his intuition told him that it might be best to confess to May. After all, May has always treated him like her own son. He shouldn't hide it from May. Two thoughts kept tangling in Peter's mind, and if Lockhart were to observe in detail, he would find that a silver light and a red light kept entangled in Peter's mind. It was his spell that was fighting with Peter's instinct, but the current situation was very stable, and his spell was very effective and completely dominant. At most, Peter had some strange thoughts, but they had little impact. Then, Peter thought for a while, and stopped thinking about it, ready to talk about it when the time came. He let go of his perception, and wanted to listen to the conversation between his idol Mr. Stark, and May's boss Mr. Lockhart. Unfortunately, maybe the soundproofing in the study was very good, so he didn't hear any sound. After a while, Peter's eyes lit up. He sensed that May was carrying a tray of tea, and walking towards the study where the two were talking. Immediately, he carefully controlled his perception, and followed May into the study. Well, he was just a little curious about what his idol was talking about, and he had no other intentions at all. Bang, bang, bang. Tony, who was communicating magic with Lockhart, heard a knock on the door and frowned slightly. He didn't like being interrupted by others, but when he saw Lockhart on the other side said, "Come in," he stopped talking immediately. Well, after a chat just now, although the relationship between the two can't be said to be very good, with the help of the Wizard Gold Coin project, the relationship is much closer. He also knew that no one in this bookshop knew Lockhart's identity. He naturally wouldn't consciously reveal Lockhart's identity as a wizard. He wouldn't make such a low-level mistake. Lockhart watched May come in with a tea tray and put it on the table. He placed teacups in front of the two and picked up the teapot to pour tea. Suddenly, May, when Mr. Stark leaves, you give him our bookstore's public account. He will transfer a sum of $1 million in it, and the money for purchasing raw materials will come from it in the future. May just put down the teapot in her hand and heard the boss's voice in her ear. She was stunned for a moment. 1 million. What did her boss do to make Tony Stark transfer the money to her? Subconsciously, she glanced at Tony Stark next to her and saw him nodding slightly. May no longer had any desire to express herself. The 1 million was earned by her boss himself, and the book cafe she ran didn't seem to even make a profit. Suddenly, May, as the store manager, felt a little discouraged. But soon, she was refreshed. If her plan passed, then there was no doubt that the book cafe would definitely make a lot of money. The account would not be so ugly at that time. Well, this was the idea she had yesterday, and Lockhart's magic was aimed at today, and it was cast on a large scale, so he didn't notice what May was thinking. If he really noticed it, he might have given her a psychological hint. As May gently agreed, Lockhart glanced at May's leaving figure, closed the door, and added a spell to block sound and perception. Then he poured a cup of tea for himself and Tony across from him and continued, "Tony, go on. Your point of view sounds very interesting." Tony smiled, took a sip of the tea in the cup, and felt that it tasted okay, so he continued, "Lockhart, just now you talked about the impact of magic on technological products, causing them to fail. I personally think that magic is a very special unknown radiation. It transforms the human body and gives people some unimaginable abilities. At the same time, it will also have a drastic impact on technological products. Tony added, after all, there have been a large number of cases showing that many technological products will have adverse reactions once they enter some special radiation covered areas and even fail to operate. Hearing Tony's point of view, Lockhart thought of the ancient castle of Hogwarts. Especially when he took office, he sensed the huge magic contained in it and nodded. Seeing Lockhart's reaction, Tony got a little excited and began to say, if we analyze the unknown radiation of magic, then we can neutralize or even expel it within a certain range so that the technology products can resume normal functions such as positioning, flying, scanning and so on. Hearing what Tony said, Lockhart looked a little strange. Why did he feel as if he was describing the function of his iron armor? This guy wouldn't want to wear the iron armor to break into Hogwarts. Well, this should be unlikely, but thinking of fighting with himself, it should be a sure thing. Listening to Tony's excitement and constantly expounding on some of his ideas, Lockhart silently recorded some of his valuable ideas. Prepare to return to the Harry Potter world to try and see how far his theory can go. As for full realization, Lockhart can clearly say, impossible. You said that magic is an unknown radiation, which can also be said from a certain perspective, because there are indeed such similar functions. But it is obvious that the magic in the Harry Potter world can make people's consciousness override matter, so that consciousness determines matter. The room of requirement in Hogwarts is a typical case. The theory of magic radiation can never explain it. But starting from this aspect, it may indeed have a certain impact on magic. I don't know how big the impact is. Tony can give it a try later, which can be regarded as helping himself to find out the gaps and make up for the shortcomings. Well, we absorb the good things, and as for the shortcomings, we should find them in time and make up for them in time, so as to improve the magic practice system. We can't stop eating because of choking. What we pursue is to keep pace with the times. This is the basic quality of being a magic researcher. After a while, Tony finished the tea in the cup and was about to pour another cup when Lockhart, holding the hanging ring, gently drew an arc into the sky. Almost at the same time, the tea in the teacup began to surge upwards. When Tony saw this scene, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes, and he exclaimed, Lockhart, is it really impossible for me to learn magic? In the new book period, the follow-up data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are asked to pin it to the top for easy access to the latest chapters. Chapter 77 on the importance of high-quality workers. Hearing Tony's somewhat regretful tone, Lockhart shook his head. It's almost impossible for you. The magic I practice has strict requirements for blood, consciousness, and even emotions. And in addition to blood, practicing magic also requires believing that consciousness is superior to matter. And for a genius like you who has achieved many results in the field of science and technology, it is difficult to believe this subconsciously. Even if you practice magic, it will only be meaningless because of cognitive conflicts and you will not be able to perform it. Hearing this, Tony nodded helplessly, but he was not too discouraged. He believed that technology must be no worse than magic. Moreover, he was a genius, and he was very confident that, even if the other party mastered magic, he would only be defeated by him. As long as he was still alive, and as long as his brain was still working, then technology would continue to improve, until it crushed magic. Lockhart didn't know what Tony was thinking. He hadn't practiced the absorption of divine thoughts to the point where it was like instinct like Dumbledore. However, Tony's problem was actually something he had thought deeply about before. Why can a genius with high IQ like Doctor Strange, who firmly believes that matter determines consciousness, quickly master the magic of Kamar-Taj and even become the new generation of supreme sorcerer? On the one hand, his magic talent is indeed not weak. On the other hand, because his hands were severely injured, he could no longer pick up the scalpel, and he spent all his money to seek help from science to no avail. In the end, he gave up the idea of science and completely fell into the arms of magic. Lockhart can be sure that Doctor Strange's severe injuries to both hands are definitely closely related to the Ancient One. Otherwise, it would be difficult for such a gifted and talented person to completely give up his achievements in the field of medicine. It is not impossible to take the path of combining science and magic. Either you stand at a certain level and can take a bird's eye view and achieve a combination of science and magic. Or, when you were a child, you were exposed to technology and magic at the same time and understood both sides thoroughly. This undoubtedly requires extremely high talent. For example, the Doctor of Destruction that Lockhart heard of in his previous life is a typical case. Or, like Lockhart, the souls who believe in science and magic blend with each other to jointly construct cognition, so that he can learn both magic and science, and combine science and magic. Although Lockhart can take the path of combining science and magic, he will never make such a choice, because Lockhart has always believed that purity or concentration is important. He has long been determined to explore the wonderful path of magic. Even science is just a supplement. Later, Lockhart and Tony talked about other aspects of magic and even science. With the memory of the previous life, the field of science can still keep up. Time passed by minute, and soon it was noon. Before Lockhart invited him to stay for dinner, Tony Stark had already asked to leave in advance, saying that he had a date. Well, whether it was Pepper, Lockhart didn't know. However, he would naturally not stop this obvious behavior of blocking people's good things. As Tony Stark left the book cafe, he asked May to help see the guests off, and began to tidy up the entire study. With a light wave of the wand, watching the sundries in the study automatically fly to where they should be. At the same time, Lockhart closed his eyes slightly, and began to review the valuable information he had just obtained from the chat. This time, he consciously shared some basic magic theories with Tony. On the one hand, he believed that Tony would not disclose these magic knowledge casually due to his pride. On the other hand, he believed that with these magic theories, Tony would definitely study some interesting things. And these things will eventually appear in front of him, and then he will naturally get Tony's research results. In fact, it is not impossible for Lockhart to let Tony learn magic. Although there is no bloodline, the meditation method of Kamar-Taj is still effective. As for talent, cognition, etc., he can also adjust them through magic or even other means. But what does this mean to Lockhart? You know, there are many kinds of workers. He knows a lot of top geniuses in the field of magic, and there are only a few top geniuses in the field of science and technology that Lockhart knows at present. Tony is still the top one. How can he bear to let Tony learn magic? A top science and technology genius, interpreting magic from the perspective of science and technology, will undoubtedly open up a new horizon for him. Well, on the importance of high quality workers. Underground base. Alexander Pierce, the former director of S.H.I.E.L.D., or the head of Hydra, looked at the tall and thin figure standing in front of him, especially his right arm, that looked like metal. A look of hesitation flashed in his eyes. Sitwell, a Hydra agent who was also lurking inside S.H.I.E.L.D., asked respectfully, "Sir, do we need to send out the Winter Soldier this time?" Hearing Sitwell's question, Pierce remained silent and did not reply. Bald Agent Sitwell seemed to see the hesitation in Pierce's heart and did not dare to say anything. Suddenly, buzz, there was a sound from the phone. Sitwell took out the phone, took a quick look, and his face suddenly changed. Then he walked to Pierce and whispered in his ear, "Director, S.H.I.E.L.D. has sent a message that the target person's ability has been further updated. This time, the other party is suspected of having the ability to control people's consciousness and memory." As he said, he showed the information on his phone to Pierce. After investigation of the collective evacuation of the Universal Book Cafe, after random inspections, it can be determined that all personnel's memories are distorted to a certain extent, and they have been strongly psychologically hinted and refused to disclose everything that happened in the Universal Book Cafe. Judgment result: the wizard professor is suspected of having the ability to control people's memories and consciousness suggestion. It is recommended to be cautious and continue to stop all tentative actions to prevent the other party from obtaining relevant information from S.H.I.E.L.D. Pierce saw the records in the mobile phone, was silent for a moment, and waved his hand to order the Winter Soldier to withdraw and continue to freeze. Originally, for the wizard professor, Pierce's strategy was to let S.H.I.E.L.D. test him to get all the information from it. This would not leak any information about Hydra. But with Nick Fury's order to stop the test, Pierce's strategy was meaningless. but he didn't intend to let the wizard professor move freely under his nose. Moreover, he was quite curious about the magic mentioned by Nick Fury, so he planned to let someone test it. This time, he was hesitating whether to send out his trump card, the Winter Soldier, for the first time to test it. As a result, the message just sent by S.H.I.E.L.D. made him completely give up his previous idea. Just kidding. They are using mind control to control the Winter Soldier, but the target person also has the means of mind control. Isn't this the same as throwing a meat bun at a dog? There is no return. However, it is not the style of Hydra not to test. How can they feel at ease if they don't investigate such a dangerous person thoroughly? But this time, they must not send Hydra people. After constant thinking, Pierce made up his mind. P.S. Thanks to Magic Eagle, Zioke, come and have a look. Friends of the Starry Sky, Ancient Words of Small Town, Demacia, Zankun Shui, 9,832,128, Dinosaur HKL and other readers for their monthly tickets. Too many monthly tickets. Thank you for the support of all the readers, and thank you in a separate chapter later. Thanks to King Fengzigwa Yu Dangsheng, Fengmina, Fengayunai, SHSH 2006, Magic Eagle, Yu Bailing, Rocky Alucard and other readers for their recommendation votes. In the new book period, the follow-up data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top for easy access to the latest chapters. Chapter 78 The Reluctant Little Spider. Early in the morning, Auburn apartment. Peter, hurry up and get up. You have to go to the hospital for a physical examination today. You can't stay in bed any longer. Mary pushed open the door of Peter's bedroom early in the morning and shouted loudly. Peter, who was lying on the bed, lifted the quilt, revealing his head, and said helplessly, Mary, I'll sleep a little longer. Don't worry, the physical examination at the hospital doesn't start until 9 o'clock. Besides, I didn't want to go for this physical examination. After hearing this, Mary walked to the bed with an expressionless face, stretched out her hand to grab the quilt, and pulled it hard. Looking at Peter lying on the bed, she said directly, if you sleep anymore, I will throw water on you. Feeling that his Aunt Mary was getting angry, Peter immediately became energetic, got up quickly, and ran to the bathroom, shouting as he ran. Mary, it's okay, I'm already up, don't rush me anymore. Seeing Peter's honest physical performance, Mary nodded with satisfaction, and shouted angrily as she walked outside. This is such a rare opportunity. The boss gave us a free physical examination, and allowed us to bring our family members. You told me you didn't go. Are you asking for trouble? Peter, who was washing his face, also replied loudly, I know. Mary, don't repeat it again. I will definitely go. I will definitely take a good physical examination this time. Hearing Peter's reply, Mary nodded with satisfaction, then walked to the kitchen, and started to make today's breakfast. Peter, who was washing his face, had a flash of anxiety in his eyes. These 2 days, specifically, after meeting his idol Stark, he had trouble sleeping at night. He often woke up in the middle of the night, as if he had a dream, but he didn't remember anything, which made him a little entangled. Thinking of this, he quickly washed his face again to wake up. These things are not important. The most important thing is today's physical examination. I don't know what happened to my Aunt Mary's boss. She actually said that all employees, including their families, would receive free physical examinations. Although it is limited to less than 2 people, it can be said to be a very good benefit for those employees. But for me, it is undoubtedly a hidden danger. He knows the special features of his body. Let's not talk about other things, just talk about his appetite. Every time Mary finishes cooking, he is not full and can only buy some food from outside. But his physical strength, intuition, speed and other aspects are different from ordinary people. Other things are easy to say. He can consciously control his body and be no different from ordinary people. But he really can't control his blood. It can be said that anyone who wants to get his blood can more or less detect problems. Therefore, he has always refused things like physical examinations. But there is no way. This is what his Aunt Mary asked, and she was even a little angry about it. How dare he refuse? No matter what, just make his Aunt Mary happy first. As for the physical examination, we can talk about it later. Well, although Spider-Man can't steal things, no one has stipulated that Spider-Man can't take back his own things. After breakfast, Mary took Peter out of the apartment, walked to the nearest bus stop, and waited quietly. After a while, the bus that Mary was waiting for had arrived. She quickly took Peter into the bus, found a seat, and waited quietly for the bus to go to the destination Boston Hospital. Although Boston Hospital is not a famous large hospital in New York City, it is also well known in New York City. The most important thing is that it is close to Wang Xiang Book Cafe. So, Lockhart decided to do it in this hospital, so that it would be convenient for him to do it after the work. Well, he is quite interested in Spider-Man's physical changes. Of course, the most important thing is that he has also been studying methods of physical strengthening recently. Kamar-Taj's body training method is good, and he is practicing it. But if there are other better ways, he will not refuse. Although he is a novice in the field of potions, who can let the Harry Potter world have a top potion master and have a cooperative relationship with him. Just take some blood and let him test it. If it helps, we can have a good chat later. If it doesn't help, it doesn't matter. Anyway, it doesn't take much effort, so why not do it? Hi, May, you are here. Alice, you are here so early. These two people next to you are your parents, right? This is my nephew Peter Parker. He has been very smart since he was a child. Peter looked at his Aunt May and his Clark helplessly and started to show off himself. Although he was somewhat used to this, he still felt a little embarrassed. He could only smile awkwardly. Soon, the other two shop assistants also came with their relatives. When Mary saw that everyone was gathered, she waved her hand and shouted loudly, "Okay, everyone line up and prepare for the physical examination." With Mary's order, everyone lined up in a long line and walked towards the hospital. After entering the hospital, Mary followed the doctor and took several people to do blood pressure, height, weight, electrocardiogram and other tests. Of course, there is also the most important blood test. After the blood was drawn, Peter firmly remembered the test tube containing his blood in the location of the test tube. He was going to take time to leave Mary later and switch the test tube containing his blood. Well, since Peter knew yesterday that he couldn't escape the physical examination tomorrow, he borrowed some blood from his good friend Ned, which has been preserved and is waiting to be used at this moment. It must be said that Ned is in good health and sleeps well. But how? May saw Peter suddenly turn his head to look behind him and asked with concern, "Peter, are you feeling uncomfortable? If you feel uncomfortable, we are in the hospital, so we can have a detailed check." Hearing May's concerned words, Peter shook his head, indicating that everything was normal and he didn't feel uncomfortable. He suddenly turned his head, but his intuition told him that someone was following him. But after turning his head, he found that there was nothing unusual. Everyone was busy with their own things, and no one was staring at him. This conflict between intuition and vision made him feel very awkward. At this moment, Lockhart was not far away, looking at Spider-Man Peter Parker with interest. He was a little amazed at Peter's keen intuition. He was now casting a disillusionment spell on himself, plus his slight muggle shielding spell. Therefore, no one would see his figure and would also actively avoid the area where he was. And the Spider-Man in front of him, through a series of performances just now, can be seen. Peter felt his existence by pure intuition and even vaguely broke through the spell he set up. If he knew magic, it would be fine, but relying purely on his intuition, he had to sigh at the strangeness of life. Well, he decided that, if he didn't study such a typical case carefully, he would be sorry for his efforts. If he could dig into its essence, whether it was through potions, spells, etc., he would have such a keen intuition. Even if it was only for a short time, it would be of great help in combat, potion making, alchemy, and even prophecy. Wow, it's simply a necessary ability for an artificial genius to cheat. In the new book period, the follow-up data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top, so that they can easily see the latest chapters. Chapter 79, Miraculous Peter shudders. May, the examination is done. I'm going to the bathroom, and will come to you later. Peter whispered to May in front of him. After hearing this, May thought about it, and found that there was nothing to do later, so she nodded and said, Okay, Peter, just find me at the hospital in translator. I'll take Alice out first. After hearing this, Peter nodded quickly, then turned around and walked to the back. According to his experience, his blood should be placed in the automatic examination room at present, waiting for a doctor to check it at noon or in the evening. There is still time to switch it, but it must be done quickly. Thinking about it, Peter quickened his pace and walked towards the location of the automatic blood examination room in the memory map. At this moment, Lockhart was in the automatic examination room. Of course, he was too lazy to follow Spider-Man all the time. The other party was not a woman, and he was not a pervert. Since he knew that Peter would eventually arrive at the automatic blood examination room, he just had to wait here in advance. This time, through some small tricks, May brought her nephew to come for a physical examination. In addition to wanting to get Spider-Man's blood, the most important thing is that he is curious about Spider-Man's intuition. He wants to test how far his intuition reaches. In his previous life, he only saw the movie Far From Home about the plot of Marvel Spider-Man. It is said that there will be another Spider-Man movie later. Unfortunately, he traveled through time before it was released. However, Peter mentioned in Far From Home was shocked, which really made him feel quite wonderful. It happened that both things were done today. Peter Parker, following the map of Boson Hospital in his memory, found the automatic blood testing room smoothly. At the same time, he also put on a baseball cap early and even changed his clothes. While walking, he stuck the surveillance camera near the testing room with chewing gum. He is very good at this. The characteristics of spider silk are too obvious to use, but it is still very easy to throw chewing gum. Soon, Peter saw the testing room, and after seeing that there was no one around, he carefully climbed into the testing room through the vent above. Lockhart was watching this scene with interest. He didn't need to go through so much trouble. He cast a wall-penetrating spell on himself and passed through the door. After entering the inspection room, Lockhart smiled as he watched Peter, whose face was covered with dust, crawl out of the vent. Movies are movies after all. The vents in reality are definitely not very clean. But swish. Almost the moment Peter came down, a spider silk flew towards Lockhart. Before Lockhart could react, he was hit by the spider silk and was stunned. Then, before he could react, he felt a pulling force pulling him towards the direction of Spider-Man Peter. So he quickly cast a spell to cut the spider silk. Who is it? Come out. Peter shouted in the direction of Lockhart. If you don't come out, I'll arrest you. Peter took back the spider silk that had been cut off, and a trace of caution flashed in his eyes, but his eyes were still fixed on Lockhart's position. There were many people just now, and his intuition might have been wrong. But now in the empty inspection room, his intuition kept telling him that there was someone. Lockhart tried to walk a few steps, but found that Peter also turned his head, and his eyes followed him, staring at his direction. He immediately untied the disillusionment spell helplessly. Who are you? Peter looked at the middle-aged white man in black robes and asked, why are you following me? Well, Lockhart was going to test Spider-Man's intuition, so there was a possibility of being discovered by the other party, or even fighting. Therefore, Lockhart changed into a new outfit early. In response to Peter's question, Lockhart smiled and said perfunctorily, there is no reason, just walking around. Hearing the other party's obviously perfunctory words, Peter was obviously dissatisfied and his face was a little ugly. I felt someone following me in the hospital lobby before, and I thought it was an illusion. Now I see that it should be the other party. And now, the most troublesome thing is that the other party already knows my identity and may even know my relationship with May. Thinking about it, Peter simply stopped thinking. No matter what, he had to catch the person first. Immediately, Peter rushed directly to Lockhart and at the same time stretched out his hand to shoot Spider Silk, trying to tie him up. Seeing this, Lockhart waved his wand lightly, and a ball of blue flame suddenly rose up, burning the spider silk that was rushing towards him. Then he controlled the flame to fly towards Peter. Seeing this, Peter hurriedly dodged, and at the same time, kept controlling his hands to control the spider silk to rush towards Lockhart's feet. It was as if he wanted to tie his feet and control his movements. Seeing Peter escape from his attack, Lockhart was not surprised. The opponent was obviously an agile fighter, and with his keen intuition, it was no surprise that he dodged. To deal with such a person, Lockhart had his own way. After summoning a ball of fire again, and burning the spider silk that rushed towards his feet, Lockhart held the hanging ring, made a strange gesture, and pushed forward heavily. Mirror space. Snap. 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 The snapping sound like a broken mirror rang in the ears of the two. Peter instantly felt that he had come to a silent world, and looked around very vigilantly. Although the scene was exactly the same as before, his intuition told him that he had come to a new place. Danger. Danger. Danger is everywhere. Peter's hair stood up, and without even thinking, he followed his instinct and rushed out. Bang. Peter broke through the glass of the inspection room, and ran out of Boson Hospital at a high speed. While running, he shot out spider silk, and shot it into the distance. Pulling hard again to increase his speed, Peter rushed out of Boson Hospital in just a few seconds. His intuition told him that the farther he was away from the mysterious man, the safer he would be. Lockhart looked at Peter running outside with a flash of surprise in his eyes. Regardless of whether it was the so-called Peter's sudden reminder, the other party's approach was undoubtedly very correct. He had mastered the mirror space for a short time, and the range of control was limited. If Peter really left his control range, he would naturally be able to avoid his attack. With his thoughts rolling in his mind, Lockhart stretched out his hand and grabbed it, and the whole hospital began to roll continuously with the wall. The floor under his feet carried him, and as he controlled his mind, he continued to rush in the direction of Peter. Almost soon, he rushed out of Boson Hospital, and saw Peter's figure, gently controlling the ring, to draw an elegant arc. A portal with sparks appeared in front of Lockhart. With one step, Lockhart walked to the rooftop of the building closest to Spider-Man. Looking at Peter who was escaping not far away, Lockhart stepped directly out of the rooftop, and walked into the air. At the same time, the surrounding walls and buildings kept rolling, forming bridges under Lockhart's feet, carrying Lockhart's body, and flying towards Peter. P.S. Thanks to Shang-Chi, 9,832,128. Just be extraordinary. Leo Lutao, the successor of Kao Wen's legacy. Fang Wanayu, I don't want to pass on the fire. What's a good name? Saint Envoy Golden Master Fei. Shanzin, Emperor Xiaoming. Book friends. 2019040900201421. Quote S monthly tickets. Thanks to Zuo Northeast Fly for the reward. Thanks to Meng Li Xiangshao, Siku Quanshu, Li Yuming, Feng Yunai, Wulian Book Friends, Zui Dingxiang and other readers for their recommendation tickets. Too many recommendation votes. Thank you all for your support. I will list them in a separate chapter later. In the new book period, follow-up reading data is extremely important. Please readers who like this book pin it to the top, so that you can see the latest chapters. Chapter 80 Peter and Hermione. When Peter rushed out of Boson Hospital, he was surprised to see the deserted environment around him. But before he had time to think, his instinct kept reminding him that the danger was not far away. So he continued to shoot out spider silk, using the force to pull himself away and flee. When he jumped between buildings, Peter could clearly see the empty New York. His eyes were a little panicked, and after running forward for a distance, his instinct told him that he was safe. He stood on the roof of an apartment building and looked around. There was no one, not even a sound, as if he was the only one in the world. A fear rose in his heart. He missed his Aunt May, Ned, and wanted to hear any human voice. Suddenly, Peter found that a circle of sparks rose on the opposite rooftop where he had stayed before. From the circle, the mysterious man he had just met in the hospital walked out. Then, the entire rooftop kept rolling and changing, and the mysterious man just stood on the rooftop and took a light step. The surrounding buildings moved to his feet spontaneously, carrying the opponent from mid-air and flying towards him. Suddenly, Peter's hair stood up, and his instinct told him that danger was coming. Peter hurriedly continued to shoot spider silk into the distance, using the force to escape. At this moment, Lockhart controlled the surrounding buildings to carry himself towards Peter. He felt that Spider-Man Peter's reaction was indeed very amazing. He ran too fast. In such an empty city, he had just cast a portal to capture the opponent's stop, and the opponent ran away. TSK TSK TSK, it's really slippery. Looking at Peter, who kept escaping into the distance. Control the hanging ring and open another portal, but as soon as he stepped into it, Peter ran away again. Repeated several times, basically never approached within 100 meters. Lockhart also tried to use spells to slow down the opponent's speed. But I don't know if this Peter's shock was too effective, and the opponent quickly dodged. It has to be said that the superheroes in the Marvel world are all quite good. Not to mention Spider-Man, who is very famous in the entire Marvel world. He opened the portal again. This time, Lockhart did not step directly into it. Instead, he pointed his wand at his throat. Cast a spell. Loud voice. Cough. Lockhart coughed lightly, and when he felt that the volume of the sound was good, he shouted loudly, "Peter, don't run away. Don't worry, I won't catch you this time. If you run again, I will leave the mirror space directly, and you won't be able to get out then." Hearing Lockhart's threatening words, Peter stopped jumping and hesitated. His intuition told him that the other party did not seem to be lying, and did not have too much malice. Moreover, he was a little scared of the current environment. If the other party really left, how would he go home? The most important thing was that it seemed that the two did not have a particularly big conflict, and it was not to the point of a desperate fight. After thinking about it, Peter's inner hesitation prevailed, and he ran towards Lockhart. Seeing this, Lockhart continued to maintain the portal, and took a few steps back. Soon, he saw Peter passing through the portal, and walking in front of him. "Who are you? Where is this place? Why are you arresting me?" Perhaps sensing that Lockhart didn't have much ill will, Peter hesitated at first, but then spoke very smoothly. Well, but once he got bold, he talked a lot. Peter's performance immediately reminded Lockhart of Hermione, the chattering little witch. It instantly gave him a sense of deja vu. But at the same time, a strange idea also appeared in Lockhart's mind. When Spider-Man meets Hermione, the two will. Lockhart shook his head slightly, shook off his inner thoughts, calmed down, and said to Peter in front of him unhappily, okay, don't ask anymore. If you ask again, you will stay in the mirror space alone." Hearing the other party's obviously threatening tone, Peter instantly covered his mouth, indicating that he would stop talking. However, he still asked in a low voice, "What should I call you?" After hearing this, Lockhart pondered for a moment, and then said lightly, "You can call me a wizard." "Okay, Mr. Wizard." Peter nodded quickly and said, "When can we leave here?" Feeling the urgency in Peter's tone, Lockhart raised his eyebrows and a smile flashed across his face. However, he swiped the hanging ring in his hand, opened a portal, and whispered to Peter, "Okay, cross this portal and you can return to Boson Hospital." Peter looked at the familiar scene opposite, and ran over excitedly. Then, Lockhart stepped in, and returned to Boson Hospital. After waving his hand to close the portal, Lockhart looked at Peter, who was staring at him, and said lightly, "Why are you still here? Are you going to play in the mirror space again?" Hearing Lockhart's cold attitude, Peter quickly shook his head, hesitated for a moment, and still thanked him. "Thank you, Mr. Wizard. Then I'll go first." As he said that, Peter ran to the place where his blood test tube was placed, tore off the label of the test tube, and reattached it to the blood test tube he prepared in advance. He took his own blood and ran outside. Lockhart did not stop this scene. After Peter left, he walked to the place where Peter's blood test tube was originally placed, and pointed his wand at a blood test tube on the left. "Quickly reveal yourself." Soon, a revealing spell was cast, revealing the true face of this blood test tube, Peter Parker's blood. Well, after Peter drew blood and left, Lockhart used the confusion charm to affect the position of the blood vessel placed by the blood draw. Then he cast a transfiguration charm, and naturally made the fake blood test tube lifelike. As for the effect, Lockhart roughly estimated that, if it were in the Harry Potter world, it would only last for one day, but in the Marvel world, it would probably last for about a week. In a week, unless Peter Parker still uses ice to keep it fresh, otherwise the blood will definitely stink. Then, Lockhart put away Peter's blood test tube, and prepared to give it to Snape for a search. Maybe with the other party's level of magic potion, he can research some good things. It would be great if he could copy Peter's magical intuition. After everything was done, Lockhart looked at the damaged parts of the inspection room because of the previous battle between the two, and then waved his wand lightly. Restored as before. Soon, the traces of the previous battle disappeared completely, as if nothing had happened. Seeing this, Lockhart nodded slightly and walked out of the automatic blood inspection room, and at the same time, lifted the Muggle shielding spell against outsiders before the battle. Casting a disillusionment spell on himself, Lockhart rushed out of the hospital. Today's 2 tasks were completed very well, so it's time to go back and complete today's reading task. There are still 2 days before returning to the world of Harry Potter. Wangxiang Book Cafe, Study Room 101. Lockhart sat next to the slender desk, on which were already placed 3 teacups and a pot of hot tea. Lockhart sat on the left, poured himself a cup, and savored it slowly. Opposite him, there were only 2 empty teacups, as if waiting for 2 guests. Soon, a circular portal with sparks appeared next to the study. Cassilis and Morin stepped in. Seeing this, Lockhart smiled faintly on his face and said, "Good morning, 2 wizards. In the new book period, the reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top, so that they can easily see the latest chapters." Chapter 81, The Peculiarity of Gold Galleon. Good morning, Lockhart. Morin and Cassilis sat opposite Lockhart. Lockhart also poured tea into the cups in front of them. The 2 picked up the tea and took a sip. Morin said, "Lockhart, you should have received the message I sent you yesterday. We have found some similar magical metals that you want. Do you want to take a look now?" Hearing what Morin said, Lockhart's face flashed with joy and nodded. He originally thought that he might have a chance to get relevant information about the magical metals that can replace gold galleons in the next time he travels through time. He didn't expect Morin to be so helpful and give him the news so quickly. Seeing Lockhart's reaction, Morin waved his hand, and a glimmer of light flashed. 4 metal fragments floated in the air and slowly fell in front of Lockhart's desk. Lockhart carefully examined the metal fragments in front of him. Morin introduced slowly, "Lockhart, the gold galleons you provided before. I found a wizard named David who specializes in alchemy. He said that this is a mixture of multiple magic metals, and the method is very clever. It contains gold, mithril, refined gold, pyrometallurgy, and some unknown magic metals. Because the sample contains a small volume, it cannot be detected for the time being. The 4 metals he just took out are what he said." Hearing the introduction of the wizard Morin, Lockhart nodded slowly. He had exchanged some gold and refined gold before, and mithril and pyrometallurgy were also seen in the alchemy books of Kamar-Taj. Although not cheap, the output is not low. It can be said that, if the gold galleons are made of these materials, then he can refine them in large quantities. Suddenly, Lockhart heard Morin's tone change, and his tone was a little strange. "But, Lockhart, Master David said that the other party's refining method is very special, and the entire gold galleon has some strange magic. It will be very difficult to imitate." Well, it seems that Master Morin also has some guesses about Lockhart's approach. Lockhart nodded slowly to show his understanding of what Master Morin meant. If Master David is right, the strange magic he mentioned should be the magic exclusive to goblins. It is equivalent to their anti-counterfeiting technology to prevent other human wizards from refining gold galleons. It seems that these goblins have put a lot of thought into this aspect. Then, Master Morin said, "Lockhart, Master David mentioned that if you have extra gold galleons, you can sell them to him directly. He has studied it and found that gold galleons have good magic conductivity. If you add gold galleons when refining magic items, you can increase the success rate and quality of refining. It's a bit like a catalyst, and the effect is still very practical. It's considered a good magic metal." Hearing this, Lockhart nodded silently. Gold galleons can be used as the universal currency of the wizarding world. Although it is made by goblins, it has a certain value in itself. Otherwise, it would not have been circulated for thousands of years. After thinking about it, Lockhart directly stretched out his hand and took out 100 gold galleons from his own space bag. They were divided into 2 waves and floated in front of the 2 people's table, and then said gently, In this case, I would like to trouble you two to help me test what other functions gold galleons have. For example, how much the probability of refining magic items can be increased, how much magic conductivity is approximately, and so on. Hearing Lockhart's request, the two people smiled faintly on their faces and nodded. It was a request, but it was actually a gift. Would the test require so many gold galleons? Lockhart was a man who could pay. Then, the two of them collected the gold galleons in front of them. Lockhart asked again, please help me collect more mithril, fine gold, and pyrometallurgy. The quantity can be a little more. I need it for a search. You can pay with magic potions. Then, Lockhart took out another 50 gold galleons and placed them in front of Morin, saying, Morin, please hand these gold galleons over to Mage David. Didn't you say that the samples were scarce before? Now that we have these, please ask him to help take a look and see what other unknown magic metals there are. If it's not enough, I can continue to provide it. Hearing Lockhart's request, Mage Morin nodded. He was a hard-working mage, and so was Mage David, so they had a very good relationship. Or in other words, since they were hard-working mages, they must have their specialties, either with a high level of cultivation, or good at alchemy, good at magic, etc. Otherwise, it would be unfair to their years of hard work. As for Master Morin, he has the most extensive knowledge, and has some knowledge of some unconventional magic knowledge. Therefore, he has a good relationship with many ascetic mages. Of course, all this stems from his long-term work as a librarian. Taking advantage of his position, he basically reads books every day. He is also a typical book lover, just like Lockhart. Therefore, the relationship between the two is getting better and better. Then Lockhart gave a few instructions, and Cassilis next to him said directly, okay, let's see what we have gained during this period. After hearing this, Lockhart smiled brightly, and so did Morin. The gains that Cassilis mentioned were naturally the potion business of the three people. Lockhart is about to return to the Harry Potter world recently, and naturally wants to reorganize the income from selling potions, so that he can bring it back to the Harry Potter world to make another fortune, and make up for the recent expenses. So he met with the three people in advance, and had a chat. Afterwards, Lockhart, Cassilis and Morin took out 3 lists. Each person exchanged with each other, and counted all the transaction records, and income of these days. Most of Lockhart's list was the shipment of potions. The list of Cassilis and Morin shows the quantity purchased, and the price paid by the buyer. This is the settlement method that Lockhart discussed with the two. As the saying goes, brothers should settle accounts clearly. He doesn't want to damage everyone's friendship, because of the potion business. The groups represented by the two may not be simple. Morin represents the ascetics, most of whom are wizards with superb skills, and basically all of them are big customers. As for Cassilis, he has been responsible for training wizard apprentices before. His network of contacts can be said to be very wide, all over Kamar-Taj. Although most of the wizards he contacts are ordinary wizards, their spending power is not bad. In order to ensure that this business can be cooperated for a long time, Lockhart specifically emphasized that all the details should be listed so that everyone can see it clearly. In this way, no one will be bothered or have wild thoughts. Of course, as a wizard, magic contracts are definitely indispensable. Magic contracts, plus the long-term vision of the three people, are enough to ensure the efficiency and high quality of the initial stage of this transaction. As for the later period, Lockhart believes that he has the strength to escort all his plans. P.S. Thank you to Yakumo Masagami, Lost Jack, Huanquan Guide, Amagi, WHT 2004, Pinkfandenden, Pipi for their monthly tickets. Thank you to Beihong, Siku Kwanshu, Zibinglang, Fengayu Nai, Zuayudingxiang and other readers for their recommendation votes. There are too many recommendation votes. Thank you for the support of all readers. This book is expected to be on the shelves next Friday, so in the remarks, written on Thursday or Friday, the list of readers who support this book during this period will be listed. Thank you again for the support of all readers during this period. Next Friday, 20 chapters will be released. In the new book period, the reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top for easy access to the latest chapters. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82, May's Plan to Make Money Without Doing Anything. Wangxiang Book Cafe. May was extremely disappointed with her boss Lockhart and even thought about resigning. However, when she thought about the difficulty of finding a job now, she gave up the idea immediately. All this was because the business plan she submitted was rejected again. She was in a good mood on the day of the physical examination. After all, only large companies have free physical examinations. As a result, after returning to the book cafe and meeting the boss, she put her carefully crafted business plan with the help of Iron Man Tony Stark in front of him. The plan has been listed in detail. She has specially customized 20 Iron Man dolls and posted 10 Iron Man posters, including the placement. She has already conceived it. It can be said that, as long as her boss decides, it can start immediately. Moreover, the most important point is that Tony Stark has been authorized before. Although it can only be used in the book cafe and not in other aspects, it is enough. Well, in fact, Iron Man agreed, mainly because he was dissatisfied with being rejected that day, and Tony Stark also wanted to see his image occupying the wizard professor's territory. With the support of this evil taste, he readily agreed. May certainly didn't know this. She only knew that according to her plan, the traffic of the book cafe would explode. The first high-end book cafe in New York authorized by Iron Man himself and themed on Iron Man is about to be established. You don't need to think about how popular it will be. The money earned is just like a strong wind blowing. You don't need to run, just stretch out your hand and it will fly into your pocket. It's just lying down to make money. She has already planned that the book cafe will first use the fame of Iron Man to cultivate user habits and then decisively use the membership card model to harvest cash in advance. With just this one move, no matter what, you can quickly get millions of cash. She remembered that her boss seemed to have spent more than $3 million to buy it. She was confident that the money earned could buy 2 sets of the same book cafe. That means she could make at least 6 or 7 million. As a result, this damn boss actually blocked her plan to make money lying down. Suddenly, she wanted to buy this Wangxiang book cafe herself and then carry out her grand plan. Unfortunately, she has no money. Having no money is the original sin. I can't think about it anymore. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. May kept telling herself while reading the book, don't be angry, don't be angry. The boss is a business idiot, don't bother with him. Now I haven't found the next buyer, I can't turn my face against him. As a result, May felt that she couldn't control herself at all, and the more she thought about it, the angrier she became. Suddenly, an idea came to her mind, and she decided to make one last try. Once the idea came up, it seemed to be deeply rooted, and it kept growing and expanding in May's mind. While thinking, she looked at the study room 101. This morning, I saw her boss sitting in the study room, and he didn't come out. Thinking about it, she stood up and decided to give her boss one last chance. If the other party really refused again, she would find a suitable opportunity to fire her boss. So, May's eyes were firm, and she strode towards the study room 101. At this moment, Lockhart looked at the 3 lists in front of him, simply checked the general information, and found that there was no problem, so he nodded slightly. Although he knew that the 2 wizards would not do anything for such a small matter, but the necessary action should still be taken. In the long run, people managing people cannot be better than mechanisms managing people. It is better to follow the process and do what has been agreed in advance, so that everyone can rest assured. Let's put friendship aside for now. Business is business after all. If you mix friendship with business, basically either the business will be ruined or the friendship will die. Lockhart understood this principle in his previous life. This is a valuable experience that he has gained by sacrificing several friendships. Almost at the same time, the 2 wizards also raised their heads, indicating that everything is fine. Then, Lockhart stood up and waved his wand gently towards the entire study. Space extension. Space extension. After several space extension spells, the space of the entire study instantly expanded by more than 3 times. Then, Lockhart controlled the desk to move to a corner. Then he waved his wand lightly, controlling the resources earned from this potion business in his space bag, and placed them in front of him. Cassilis and Morin did the same. The 3 of them looked at the pile of various magic metals, magic items and other magic resources in front of everyone. A hint of excitement flashed in their eyes. This link was particularly emphasized by Lockhart. In order to ensure that his business could continue, he believed that he had to give everyone effective stimulation for the first time. And what was the most effective stimulation? In his previous life, after a project was successfully completed, he would go to the bank to withdraw cash, or thick stack of it, and put it in front of each researcher according to their contribution. Perhaps he could transfer the money directly, but he liked to give cash directly the most. The stimulation given by cash was far greater than the stimulation given by the change of numbers. Just as he emphasized that the resources earned this time must be taken out and placed in front of the 3 people. Let them see for themselves how much benefit the magic potion business has brought them. Only in this way, Lockhart believed that they would do it with all their heart without him saying much. Although the means were a little rough, they were quite practical. Of course, it was definitely not appropriate to do this every time, but enough stimulation must be given for the first time. To be honest, after seeing the vast amount of magic resources, he felt a warm current rising in his chest, which could be said to be full of motivation. This business of being a dealer was really profitable. I believe that it would be more profitable when his own banknote printing factory was opened later. At the same time, Cassilis and Morin were very excited when they saw such a large amount of magic resources in front of them. At the same time, they thought that it was very necessary to continue this business. Then, Lockhart waved his wand lightly, controlling each magic resource, to be placed together in different categories. It must be said that the magic in Harry Potter's world is far superior to the magic in Kamar-Taj in terms of practical life. With a light wave of the wand and a turn of mind, a large amount of magic resources floated in the air, and then landed slowly and orderly at various locations on the ground, slowly outlining a huge rectangular shape. At this time, Cassilis and Morin looked at the various magic resources placed in front of them in different categories, and a trace of satisfaction flashed in their eyes. According to the contract signed before, Lockhart would get 50% for providing core resources, and he and Morin would each get 25%. At this moment, Lockhart was concentrating on identifying each type of magic resource. This time when he returns to the Harry Potter world, he will definitely show his skills, and he must consume these magic resources anyway. Otherwise, how could he work so hard to sell so many potions and not make a profit? You know, up to now, he still owed Snape a large sum of gold galleons. Lockhart, Cassilis, and Morin were concentrating on identifying and counting all the magic materials, magic items, magic metals and other resources. Suddenly, Lockhart frowned slightly. He sensed that someone was approaching the study outside. Sure enough, dung. There was a knock on the door. P.S. The plot about Mary has been refined, and the plot will be adjusted later. IQ will be guaranteed to be online later. In the new book period, follow-up data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top for easy access to the latest chapters. Chapter 83 on the importance of decision direction. Boss, it's me. Hearing a familiar voice coming from the door, Lockhart glanced at the magic resources on the ground. He shook his head helplessly. At this moment, Cassilis and Morin showed their eyes to watch the show. Obviously, they knew that it would be impossible to collect these magic resources now. After all, the other party was just outside the door. Now they were looking forward to Lockhart's solution. Such an interesting scene is rare. At this moment, Lockhart, of course, also saw the expressions of his 2 friends watching the show, and naturally knew what they were thinking. But for him, this is not a difficult thing to deal with. It's just a matter of a few spells. He doesn't like to complicate simple things. Even if Mate or it, the memory was cleared, and nothing would happen. Then, Lockhart waved his wand lightly at the surrounding space. Confuse the eyes and ears. A confusing spell was cast, and in the eyes of ordinary people, the surrounding scene changed instantly and returned to the original appearance of the study. And Cassilis and Morin, with their strong mental power, can easily see these illusions. But there was no more to say. After all, watching the show is the first priority. May, what's up? After tidying up the study, Lockhart walked to the door, opened it, and asked May in front of him. Boss, can we go in and talk? May looked around and felt that a heated discussion might take place later, so she asked. In response, Lockhart slightly turned sideways and said, "Come in." As he said that, Lockhart walked to the desk, poured a cup of tea, and handed it to May, who was following closely behind. After May took it, she put it on the table and asked in a deep voice, "Boss, there is something I think we still need to talk about. Sit down and talk." Lockhart sat on the chair, pointed to the chair opposite, and said calmly, "Okay, boss." After sitting down, May spoke first. "Boss, I have carefully planned the previous plan. As long as it is implemented, whether it is the reputation of Book Cafe or the traffic, it will definitely usher in an explosive growth. And with the authorization of Tony Stark's image, this is a unique advantage of Book Cafe. We can completely focus on this theme. And we can find new profit points, such as the classic membership card model, or provide more exquisite drinks. In the later stage, we can completely use the franchise chain model." Lockhart listened to May's continuous description of her plan without interrupting, just listening silently, with a calm expression, looking into May's eyes. In the entire Book Cafe, only May was constantly talking, and Cassilis and Morin, who had already hidden their figures, also found a chair and sat on it. At this moment, May felt that the atmosphere was becoming more and more serious. She kept talking, but the boss did not respond at all, and his expression did not change at all. Knowing that this time I'm afraid I will return empty-handed again. However, I really can't bear to let my carefully made plan go down the drain. At the end, he still asked silently, "Boss, what do you think is wrong with the plan?" Lockhart asked silently after hearing May finish the whole plan. "May, do you think I'm short of money?" Without waiting for May to reply, he continued to ask, "The plan you just talked about is very good. But don't forget that the core of your plan lies in Tony Stark's image authorization, which is your core competitiveness." At this point, Lockhart glanced at Cassilis and Morin sitting next to him, and said as if hinting, "Think about it. If you lack this core competitiveness, all your plans, all your efforts will eventually disappear. And the image authorization you mentioned, let's not talk about whether you have signed a professional contract. Just ask one thing, why did Tony Stark authorize you? Have you thought about this question?" Hearing this, May was stunned on the spot, not knowing how to respond. Then, Lockhart said to May with some special meaning, "Nothing comes easy. We all have our own purpose in doing anything, even if the purpose is just to please ourselves. Have you ever thought that with Tony Stark's character, what he promised you was purely a prank, or he was venting his dissatisfaction? If it really goes according to your plan, Tony Stark will probably be very happy, because his prank succeeded." Hearing this, no matter how stupid May was, she knew that she had completely thought in the wrong direction before. "Then May, I remember you have only been in Book Cafe for 2 weeks, and are still in the probation period." Lockhart's calm tone was like a sharp thorn, peeling off the truth of the matter. May's face was a little pale, as if she knew what the next words meant. "I originally bought this Book Cafe just to have a place to drink tea and talk with friends, but at that time I thought that I couldn't let the resources go to waste, so I'll let the Book Cafe open for business naturally. Now it seems that the business strategy of the Book Cafe needs to be adjusted. Become a private reception place. You should understand what I mean." At this point, May nodded blankly and said in a bitter voice, "Okay, I understand what you mean." Why doesn't she understand? This is a change of people. After speaking, May stood up and walked out in a hurry. Seeing May's departure, Lockhart shook his head slightly. He saw with his own eyes that May was very attentive, and the plan he made was also very perfect. But the problem is, the direction is completely reversed. If the direction is reversed, the more you try, the greater the price you pay in the end. Think about it, Iron Man is such a genius, standing in the justice camp, how much contribution he has made. But if he completely blackens, then how great his original contribution is, and the damage he has caused to the world will only expand exponentially. After all, destruction is always easier than creation. Therefore, the direction of decision making is very important, or the initial strategy is extremely important. In this case, if he wants to reform the wizarding world and promote a new magic system, what should be the core direction or strategy? Lockhart had a general idea in his constant thinking. At the same time, he had made a decision that when he returned to the Harry Potter world, he would find a suitable person to be the store manager. A situation like May must not happen again. He was not thoughtful at first and forgot about Aunt May as Spider-Man. Peter is quite active, so her Aunt May would definitely not be a quiet person. At this time, with May's complete departure, Lockhart released his control over magic. Cassilis and Maureen also revealed themselves. At the same time, the illusion arranged around began to dissipate, revealing its original appearance. A large number of magic resources were placed on the floor in batches and categories. Lockhart, I feel like you don't know how to be gentle with women. You should be more tactful when you speak, Cassilis said jokingly. Look at your store manager. After hearing the truth you told, he seems a little overwhelmed. Cassilis, sometimes, a short pain is worse than a long one. Lockhart replied softly, it will be good for everyone if we talk about it more openly. Besides, the most fundamental problem of this matter is that the store manager, May, is not a mage. She has no access to our information at all, and I can't tell her directly. Naturally, her ideas are very different from ours. Of course, there are also my problems. When the book cafe just started operating, I didn't tell her about my ideas. At that time, I just wanted it to operate as a normal book cafe and have some popularity. Now that we know the root cause of the problem, we must solve it in time and not let the problem expand. Hearing what Lockhart said, Maureen nodded in agreement. Cassilis was thoughtful and didn't continue the conversation. Afterwards, after chatting for a few words, the three of them discussed the allocation of resources together. Well, Lockhart prefers some magic metals, magic potions, magic herbs, and so on. There is no strong demand for magic items. After all, in Hogwarts, with Dumbledore guarding, safety is still very guaranteed, and his current strength is not weak. Cassilis and the others are more interested in magic items, thinking about improving their combat effectiveness. As for Maureen, he prefers some resources for magic practice. There are some conflicts with Lockhart, but not too many. After the three of them discussed, soon everyone got their own resources. Feeling very satisfied, and Lockhart gently stroked the space bag on his waist, and a bright smile rose on his face. This trip to the Marvel world has yielded a lot. The next step is to return to the world of Harry Potter. P.S. Thank you for the monthly tickets for calling me Mayodal. Book friend 2021103120018333069 and the persimmon that has been opened. Thanks to the model husband, Sikikwanshu, Jgchina, Mood Preface, Zuayudingxiang and other readers for their recommendation tickets. Too many recommendation votes. Thank you all for your support. This book is expected to be on the shelves on Friday, so I will specifically thank you for your support in the release remarks. In the new book period, follow-up reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top, so that you can easily see the latest chapters. Chapter 84 Marvel Magic in the Harry Potter World. Searching for the solidified World Shuttle Channel. Search successful. Teleporting. Transporting. Welcome the host back to the Harry Potter world. Warning, after staying in this world for 30 days, the soul will gradually be branded with the mark of this world. You need to leave this world in time to avoid being infected by the world's breath. Late at night, Hogwarts, Defense Against the Dark Arts office. With a glimmer of light, Lockhart's figure appeared in his office. In front of him, there were two piles of books that were almost one person tall. They were the books he borrowed from the Kamar-Taj library. This time, he still followed the usual routine and ran to the Kamar-Taj library in advance before leaving. He borrowed nearly 30 books from Kamar-Taj by taking advantage of the system's cross-travel bug. They were all carefully selected. Although some knowledge was repeated, it was enough for him to learn this month. As Lockhart waved the wand in his hand, he controlled the books from Kamar-Taj to enter his magic suitcase. He felt uneasy about leaving these books in the office at Hogwarts. It would be better to put it on the bookshelf in the study in his suitcase. After finishing all the chores, Lockhart looked at the ring in his hand with expectation. Holding the ring, he gently drew a circle. In an instant, a fiery red circular portal appeared in front of him. Opposite the portal was his study in Hogsmeade Village. With a light step, Lockhart left Hogwarts and returned to his study. Snap. Looking at the somewhat dim study, Lockhart snapped his fingers. In an instant, a bright ball of light appeared above the study, filling the entire study with soft light. Seeing this, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction. When he returned to the Harry Potter world, his first thought was to try whether his magic in the Marvel world would work. If it didn't work, then he should analyze whether there was any problem. Now it seems that the effect is still good. The Harry Potter world allows the magic of Kamar-Taj to be cast. Then, Lockhart held the ring, summoned the magic rope, and swung it hard. Snap. The loud whip sounded throughout the study. Feeling the magic and power contained in the long rope, Lockhart's eyes showed a hint of as expected. In the Marvel world, the magic of the Harry Potter world is basically much more powerful, as if there is a bonus. In the Harry Potter world, even the magic of Kamar-Taj is still suppressed to a certain extent. But the combat effectiveness is still good, not weaker than ordinary offensive spells. Afterwards, Lockhart tried to experiment with various attack and defense auxiliary magics learned from Kamar-Taj. It was found that, although they were all suppressed, the effect was still good, and there was no complete failure or inability to cast. Finally, Lockhart looked at the ring in his hand, and his eyes rose with expectation. There is one last spell, Mirror Space. If this spell can be successfully cast in the Harry Potter world, it would be great. With his thoughts turning, Lockhart held the ring, made a strange gesture, and then slowly pushed it forward. Click, click, click. With the familiar sound of the mirror breaking, Lockhart's face changed. He felt that his magic power was being consumed crazily. Almost 60% of it was consumed. Only then did he sense that he had entered a silent space, the mirror space. Looking at the familiar scene in front of him, Lockhart sighed slightly after sensing the range. Then, he tried to distort the entire mirror space again. The result was that a large amount of magic power was consumed, which instantly made Lockhart's face pale, and then he quickly chose to give up. Sensing this scene, Lockhart smiled bitterly. Sure enough, it was consistent with his imagination. According to the relevant books he read, the core of the Marvel world's mirror space is so easy to cast. The mirror space is the existence of the mirror dimension. Kamar-Taj's magic is equivalent to using the power of the dimension to construct its own exclusive mirror space. It is very convenient to operate, and the momentum seems to be very huge. But the Harry Potter world is different. There is no mirror dimension at all. Although consumption can still be constructed with the help of a certain amount of spatial power, the consumption of magic power is also not small. The final result is that the constructed mirror space is small in area, and it is difficult to control it as arbitrarily as in the Marvel world. However, this size is relative to a city in the Marvel world. According to his perception, it is about the size of a small street. If the magic power is replenished again, the range can be further expanded. But it is limited to this. Afterwards, Lockhart returned to his study and took out the magic resources of the Marvel world that he had stored before. See if there is any change after crossing a world. After the analysis, a faint smile floated on his face, and there was no problem. The only drawback is that some plants look a little wilted. For example, the Yunshan flower. After Lockhart took it out, he found that it might be unsuitable for water and soil, and it looked a little wilted. He was not worried about this. Although he was not good at magical plants or magical plants, Hogwarts had professors who were good at it. Let them study it and find a solution soon. As for whether these magical plants would be leaked, Lockhart said he was not worried. Let's not talk about the character of those professors. Even if Dumbledore knew, he would not say much. The world is so big, there are some unknown magical plants. What's wrong? Dumbledore didn't dare to say that he knew everything about the wizarding world. Well, the premise is that it does not affect some of his plans. Of course, doing so can also show off one's financial strength and improve the favorability of Professor Sprout of the herbology class. A person's image can affect the other party's cognition and then affect his behavior, his attitude, and even the strength of support. In other words, as the saying goes, clothes make the man, and saddles make the horse. Under the same conditions, if you wear a suit to find investment and a shirt to find investment, the attitude of investors is completely different. With his mind turning, Lockhart waved his wand lightly and took back all the magic resources just tested into his space bag. Then he walked to the bookshelf in his study and looked at a black notebook on the far left, Voldemort's Horcrux. He had already made plans for this Horcrux of Voldemort. If he didn't master the magic of resisting the mind, he would never touch it. You know, this was made by Voldemort, who could go to war with Dumbledore, and it was his most core soul fragment. In the original book, the other party even prepared to resurrect with just this Horcrux. If Harry Potter hadn't destroyed the notebook, Dumbledore and Voldemort might have started a war long ago. Now, he has mastered a series of mind and soul magic about Kamar-Taj, which naturally meets the prerequisites for a search. Chapter 85 New Worker Candidates. Hogwarts. Defense against the Dark Arts Office. Lockhart sat at his desk, looking at the black notebook on the table, and carefully reviewed his carefully forged memories. After a brief thought, he controlled a feather pen beside him and silently wrote, "On Runes and Immortality, Gilderoy Lockhart." Experiment 16. In addition to maintaining the immortality of the soul, the body must also be provided with sufficient vitality to extend life. Studies have shown that soul runes are beneficial to improving the activity of the soul, but at the expense of the vitality of the body. So, the human body must be strengthened, and we can start with the bloodline. Idea 1. Pure Wizard Bloodline. Essay. I have been a professor of defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts for 2 weeks. I have to say that the books in the library have really helped a lot. The difference between ancient runes and runes is worth further study. Through comparison, we can find new functions and make the meaning of runes more effective. Currently, a densely packed rune study plus essays basically wrote a full 10 pages. After finishing writing, Lockhart closed the notebook, took out an exquisite blue wooden box from the suitcase, which also contained a notebook for his research on runes, and then put the black notebook in it. At this moment, a smile appeared on Lockhart's face. We can't be impatient about the research on Voldemort's Horcrux. First of all, the first thing to do is to be able to communicate with the Horcrux, and how to make the other party communicate with you efficiently. There is no doubt that you can give the other party what they want, otherwise no one will care about you for no reason. And what can Lockhart give to a Voldemort Horcrux? It is impossible to provide vitality to the notebook, like in the original book, to help him revive. Lockhart would do this if he was mentally retarded, or pretend to be a child, and get this notebook by chance. What's the point of this? You know, what is the most valuable thing about Voldemort's Horcrux? It is his soul fragment, specifically, Voldemort's own talent. This is a Dark Lord who can fight Dumbledore, and his magical talent is beyond doubt. Pretend to be a child and discuss runes with him. Voldemort can believe it. Lockhart ate the notebook himself. How deep can a child's words and thoughts be? Just look at Hermione. It is better to use the immortality that Voldemort has always pursued as bait to lure him. As long as he still has desires, there will be weaknesses. With weaknesses, Lockhart has the possibility of controlling them. Well, in fact, Lockhart's core goal is to make Voldemort work for him. This is what he thinks is the most valuable thing of Voldemort's Horcrux besides the notebook itself. What is the most important thing in the 21st century? Talent. A person's intelligence, especially the intelligence of top talents, is a precious wealth that cannot be measured by value. This sentence was often mentioned by Lockhart in his previous life, and it is also feasible in the wizarding world. Now Lockhart has given Voldemort a general idea of pursuing immortality through runes, as well as a detailed introduction to runes. The rest depends on the other party's desire for immortality. As for the effect, Lockhart said that he had sensed several extremely obscure divine thoughts sweeping by. However, the other party did not forcefully break through his memory, but only wandered around the periphery to capture his emotions. This was not unexpected for Lockhart. He had previously studied the methods of many divine thought masters, which were almost the same as Voldemort's just now. They all sense the other party's emotions and fragments of thoughts, and then combined with their own experience, to obtain their own information without anyone noticing. This is the method that a divine thought master should have. For example, Dumbledore did this before, and Voldemort did the same. Directly entering other people's minds to obtain memories is too crude. Well, of course, what Voldemort obtained was all the information he had forged before. And what he forged was a professor of the Defense Against the Dark Arts class at Hogwarts who was obsessed with using runes to pursue immortality and power. I believe this will make Voldemort feel very surprised. The next day at noon, in the corridor of Hogwarts, Lockhart had just finished today's class for the 5th year students and was about to return to his office. As a result, in the corridor, he saw Snape, who was wearing a black robe and had an expressionless face, walking towards him. "Hi, good afternoon, Professor Snape." Snape saw Lockhart across from him, and probably because of the previous transaction, he showed a stiff smile on his face, nodded, and replied, "Good afternoon, Professor Lockhart." Then he walked past Lockhart and walked towards his office. Lockhart shrugged at Snape's attitude, but after thinking about it, he turned around and replied, "Professor Snape, when are you free this afternoon? I'll find you in the office. Your goods have arrived." Hearing what Lockhart said, Snape turned around, stared at Lockhart's light blue eyes, and said, "I have classes in the afternoon. I'm free at 8 o'clock in the evening." Lockhart thought about it, nodded, and agreed. After seeing him, Snape didn't say much, and turned around, and continued to walk towards his office. Although he was interested in the 2 unknown magical plants mentioned by Lockhart, he had a pot of potion boiling now, and needed to go back, to adjust the fire in time. Lockhart was walking leisurely, and from time to time some young wizards who had just finished class greeted him, and of course he nodded in response in a friendly manner. Soon, he returned to his office. After returning to the office, Lockhart took out an exquisite blue box from the bookshelf next to him, and took out the black notebook inside. He turned to the latest page, and continued to write, "Conjecture about rune number 58. Conjectured meaning, soul effect. It has the effect of nourishing the spirit, suspected to be related to the soul, consuming vitality or magic power. Conjectured use, improve mental power, enhance the spirituality of magic items, and temporarily enhance the spiritual perception of wizards." Lockhart simply wrote a few lines about the conjecture of rune number 58 and simply sketched a rune number 58, then closed the notebook again, and put it back into the blue box. It is impossible to communicate with Voldemort in one go, and he did not think of letting the other party reveal his identity through a few lines of words. So Lockhart prepared to reveal some information that is helpful to the soul and immortality in his notebook from time to time. "I believe that it won't be long before Voldemort will take the initiative to talk to me. After all, he simply put forward his own conjecture and at most drew a rune. If the other party wants to get more key information, they can only communicate with him." This trick was quite skillful when Lockhart talked about projects in his previous life. TSK. First draw a big pie. As long as the other party is interested, then you can only enter your own routine. PS. Returning to the Harry Potter world again. This time, Lockhart will officially start his Wizard World reform plan. Thanks to Sequanshu, book friend 1603311021526657716906814388. Zanayan Shingayu. 9,832,128. King. Hiya Giawiya Baofu. Jan Wuhan 0W0. Book friend 33,207,611,675 for their monthly tickets. Thanks to Yipian Hay, Sequanshu, Shangu Yaohan, Langs Hangxian Huang, Model Husband, Zhu Chenan, Zhuang Xiangchen, Zhuahuding Xiang and other readers for their recommendation tickets. Too many recommendation votes. Thank you for your support. This book is expected to be on the shelves on Friday, so I will thank you in the remarks for the release. Thank you again for your support during this period. 20 chapters will be released on Friday. In the new book period, follow-up data is extremely important. Please pin this book to the top for easy access to the latest chapters. Chapter 86, Potions Master Snape's Judgment. Hogwarts, Snape's office. Snape was correcting students' homework in his office, and occasionally he would look at the twins George and Fred dealing with slugs. These two were caught by him again on a night tour yesterday. Gryffindor was naturally deducted points again, but the two of them could not escape punishment. It just so happened that a new batch of slugs needed to be dealt with. Who else could they find if not them? George and Fred looked at the disgusting slugs in their hands with disgust, especially its slippery feel and disgusting smell. They wanted to vomit from time to time, but there was no way. Snape had given them the scent of magical plant in advance to prevent them from vomiting. This made them have no chance to escape by vomiting. They could only deal with it while enduring the torture brought by the slugs. And Snape, of course, cast a spell early to isolate the smell. Otherwise how could he correct homework with peace of mind? Suddenly, dong, 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 dong. Come in. Hearing the crisp knock on the door, Snape said indifferently. Then, the office door quietly opened, and Lockhart entered Snape's office. Lockhart rubbed his nose and looked at the slugs in George and Fred's hands with some disgust. He said to Snape casually, "Professor Snape, the Soulflower and Golden Clover you asked for are here. I'll send them to you. At the same time, I have something to discuss with you." As Lockhart spoke, he cast a spell on himself to isolate the disgusting smell of the slugs. At the same time, he looked at George and Fred who were dealing with the slugs, as if watching a good show. He heard that these two funny guys were caught by Snape for a night out, which not only caused Gryffindor to deduct another 20 points, but also punish themselves. After hearing this, Snape turned his head and looked at George and Fred who were dealing with the slugs, especially the surprise and expectation in their eyes. He said in a somewhat cold tone, "That's all for today. Come again tomorrow night." Hearing Professor Snape's words, the expectations of the two suddenly disappeared, and their faces were full of sorrow. But he nodded quickly, said hello to Lockhart, and ran out of the office quickly. Slug. Really disgusting. At this moment, Snape looked at Lockhart opposite him and said lightly, "Take it out." After hearing this, Lockhart took out two gift boxes from the space bag, opened them separately, and then controlled them to float on the desk in front of Snape. Snape looked down at the light golden clover and the light purple Yunchen flower. First, he stretched out his hand to tear off a petal of the Yunchen flower and put it in his mouth to taste it. He closed his eyes slightly for a moment, then opened them with a hint of surprise in his eyes, and said to Lockhart, "The soul flower can indeed enhance mental strength, but more importantly, it is very low in toxicity. The drug resistance of the refined potion will be lower. If the price is not high, it will be a good substitute." After hearing this, Lockhart's face flashed with joy, and then he quickly pointed to the golden clover next to him. "Snape, try this." Snape picked up a light golden leaf, smelled it lightly, and then put it in his mouth to taste it. After a moment, he continued, "The golden clover does have the effect of restoring magic power. But its focus is not on restoring magic power, but on strengthening physical fitness, and even has a slight effect on purifying the blood." Then, Snape said with some regret, "Unfortunately, the effect on purifying the blood is too small, even negligible. Unless used for a long time, the effect will not be seen in a short time." Hearing Snape's regretful tone, Lockhart's heart moved, and he asked, "Snape, if there is a high-year-old golden clover, can you make a potion to purify the blood?" As he spoke, Lockhart reached out and carefully took out a crystal ball, which contained a dark golden clover. This was a golden clover that was hundreds of years old, and it was a treasure of Morin. Lockhart mentioned that he needed a golden clover before, and after their relationship gradually improved, he gave it to Lockhart directly, as a testimony of friendship. After Snape took it, he seemed to know the preciousness of the material this time, and cast a spell slowly but very accurately, to take out the dark golden clover. First, he cast a detection spell, as if receiving some information. Then he took out a knife from the side, cut out a small piece, put it in his mouth, and chewed it slowly and carefully. This time, Snape thought for a longer time, while Lockhart, who was beside him, waited more patiently, but there was still a hint of expectation in his expression. He had not forgotten that the Ancient One emphasized that the bloodline should be as pure as possible. After a while, Lockhart saw Snape open his eyes with a hint of joy on his face and nodded and said, "Yes, this golden clover can be used to make a pure blood potion. If you just take the medicinal materials and sell them, for a pure blood family, you can sell at least 300 gold galleons. If you are lucky, you can get 500 or 600. It is not impossible. And if it is refined into a potion, it can be sold for at least thousands of gold galleons." Hearing Snape's judgment, Lockhart was slightly shocked. He didn't expect that a gift from Morin could actually make him recover a lot of blood. But after thinking about it, Lockhart still said to Snape, "Snape, if you are asked to refine a pure blood potion, what else do you need to pay?" In response to Lockhart's question, Snape showed a look of as expected. Generally, no wizard would miss the chance to refine pure blood, especially half-blood wizards like them. Magical power comes from blood. The higher the blood level, the better the magic talent and spellcasting ability. After a moment of silence, Snape said in a deep voice, "Other precious materials are needed to match, but I have them here, with a total value of about 100 gold galleons." Then, Snape added, "In addition, if I were to refine it, it would cost at least 50 gold galleons, and there is no guarantee of success." Hearing what Snape said, Lockhart's face froze, thinking that it was indeed not cheap. He only calculated the balance of gold galleons now, which was only about 800. If he had to pay these 150 gold galleons, his net worth would drop a lot. But fortunately, he should be able to make a lot of money this time. Lockhart touched the space bag in his hand and thought to himself. However, after thinking about it, Lockhart still smiled and took out more than 10 different magic materials from the space bag, saying in a flattering way, "Snape, please identify these materials and give an estimate of their price." In the new book period, follow-up reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top so that they can easily see the latest chapters. Chapter 87. Are you smuggling? You smuggled it? Snape looked at the various unknown magic materials floating in front of him, with a hint of certainty in his tone. Originally, there were some speculations about Lockhart buying a large number of banned potions. Seeing this scene now, what else can I say? Of course not. Lockhart said firmly, "These are all sent by some friends." Yes, it was indeed sent by Marine and Cassilis. Snape listened to Lockhart's explanation and stared at his light blue eyes without moving, while Lockhart looked back directly, his eyes full of confidence. "You check, you can find my traces, these potion materials, I swallowed them one by one." As if seeing Lockhart's confidence, Snape retracted his gaze and said lightly, "I don't care what you do, but one thing is, that you have to pay the fee. The appraisal fee for these is 20 gold galleons." Hearing this, Lockhart asked thoughtfully, "Is this the fee for your appraisal today, or do I have to pay the appraisal fee every time?" In response to Lockhart's question, Snape said without hesitation, "Today's appraisal is a bit too much. 20 gold galleons are enough. The main thing is that these are unknown magical plants, and you spent a lot of effort." Then, he explained, "And my appraisal level is much higher than that of the wizards in Diagon Alley, and the appraisal effect is more accurate. And I made an appraisal certificate with my signature on it, which will be recognized in the market, so the price is a bit higher." Lockhart chuckled at Snape's somewhat arrogant tone, and with a wave of his hand, more than 20 kinds of unknown plants and animal remains appeared around him, and said with a smile, "I encountered a magical relic on an expedition before, and obtained a lot of materials of unknown nature. How about you help identify them today?" Snape looked at the remains of nearly 30 or 40 kinds of unknown magical plants and animals in front of him, and looked at Lockhart deeply. Suddenly, he began to believe the magical relic mentioned by Lockhart. 1 or 2 unknown materials could be explained, and he could only say that he was ignorant. But with so many unknown materials, it was impossible that he had never seen any of them, unless they had been lost for a long time, or they were artificially cultivated. It seemed that Lockhart had obtained a lot of good things over the years. Snape retracted his gaze, looked at the large amount of materials in front of him, and said, "These will cost 50 gold galleons for identification." Then, he asked tentatively, "If all these magic materials are given to me, the identification fee can be waived, and I will give you the results in 2 days. Hearing Snape's tentative tone, Lockhart didn't care and nodded and said, okay, all these materials are given to you. At the same time, the 20 gold galleons mentioned before are still given to you. But you have to help me test a blood sample. As he said that, Lockhart took out a tube of Spider-Man Peter Parker's blood and 20 gold galleons. He handed it to Snape and continued, I want you to help me test its value and whether it is possible to refine a potion that can improve physical fitness or intuition. After thinking for a moment, Lockhart explained, this is from an unexpected experiment that cannot be replicated. The target has a strong body and amazing reaction ability, especially the opponent's intuition is comparable to that of the bull escape bird. Even stronger ordinary spells can't hit the opponent at all, and even chasing can't catch up. I think his intuition is an extremely precious ability. If it can be replicated, even a part of it is great. After hearing the explanation, Snape looked at Lockhart meaningfully. This guy has a lot of good things in his hands. The bull escape bird, don't look at it as cute, but you know how sensitive the intuition of that thing is. Although it is a 3x level magical animal, any magical material on the opponent is hard to come by, not to mention its own amplification effect on wizards when casting space spells. However, because the opponent's intuition is too sensitive, once he finds a problem, he will teleport away immediately, making it difficult to capture. Even if we restrict its spatial mobility, the other party will fly, and it is impossible to hit it if we want to capture it with a spell. If Lockhart's blood is sold in the market as he said, it can at least be sold for 20 gold galleons. Regardless of whether it is effective or not, the research value alone is enough. After thinking about it, Snape nodded and said, okay. He waved his hand and placed the magic plant and blood in the collection cabinet next to him. He raised 3 fingers and continued, I will give you the relevant identification report in 3 days. Then, he looked at Lockhart with some expectation. Is there anything else that I need to identify? Hearing this, Lockhart hesitated, but after thinking about it, he shook his head firmly. Well, there are good things, of course. Take them all out again. How to hook up with this top potion master later. He still has a lot of Kamar-Taj magic potions in his hands, and Lockhart is confident that he can attract Snape's interest. The materials this time are enough for the other party to identify, and they can talk slowly later, if there is a chance. Snape saw Lockhart shaking his head, and maybe the transaction between the two brought him a lot of benefits. So he tried to pull a smile from his face and said, if there is nothing else, Professor Lockhart, you can leave. I still need time to study here. Lockhart looked at the somewhat cold smile on the other's face, nodded and said, okay, Professor Snape, I won't bother you anymore. Then he walked out of Snape's office. Snape, on the other hand, increased the speed of correcting the homework. After correcting the homework, he could study Lockhart's magic plant. To be honest, so many magic materials with unknown effects in front of him did make him a little excited. Maybe these magic materials can give him a lot of inspiration for making potions. The next morning, Lockhart stood outside the window of the corridor, watching the little wizards riding magic brooms who were training outside. There was a trace of curiosity in his eyes. Although in the memory of his original body, he had tried to fly on a magic broom. But since he came here, to be honest, he has never tried it. And now, he basically opens the portal, and riding a broom is not as fast as opening the portal. But now seeing this scene in front of him, it evokes some memories of his previous life. When he was young, he saw the Harry Potter movie, and was quite curious about this magical world. Especially when he saw a lot of little wizards flying in the sky on broomsticks, he was envious. Maybe he got older, and his thoughts, when he was young, gradually faded. But now he has nothing to do, and suddenly saw this scene, and suddenly he was interested. Suddenly, snap, Lockhart felt his shoulder being tapped lightly, and suddenly turned his head, and found that behind him was the White Devil Principal Dumbledore. P.S. Thank you for the peach blossoms. Thousands of years of prosperity. Book friends 170,321,111,805,228. All the good names were taken by dogs. Book friends. 20180508225235600. Jingzhao Qian. The boss will take you to fly. Readers. 1250038079720706048. And the monthly ticket of instant noodles Wu Ji Wan Su. Thanks to Eternal Darkness for the reward, and thanks to I'm poor, clumsy fly, why so cool, 4 cools all lose, drunk rain lilac, oppose seeing and other readers for their recommendation votes. Too many recommendation votes, thank you for your support. This book is expected to be on the shelves on Friday, so I will thank you in the remarks for the release. Thank you again for your support during this period. 20 chapters will be released on Friday. In the new book period, follow-up reading data is extremely important. Please pin this book to the top for easy access to the latest chapters. Chapter 88 Dumbledore's Autobiography. Lockhart, what are you looking at? Dumbledore asked with a smile. His tone was kind, and Lockhart quickly came back to his senses. Principal, just now I saw the little wizard doing flight training, and I suddenly missed the time when I was in school. In response to the principal's question, Lockhart also said with some emotion, time flies so fast. In the blink of an eye, it's been more than 10 years since graduation. After hearing this, Dumbledore said with some nostalgia, it's true that the older you get, the more you miss your childhood. At my age now, I really envy the carefree times of these little wizards. Hearing Dumbledore's somewhat nostalgic tone, Lockhart nodded in sympathy and said, indeed, I was just thinking, should I try riding a magic broom myself? I've been busy with work recently, and now that I've mastered space spells, I haven't tried it for a long time. Then Dumbledore smiled and suddenly said, Lockhart, do you want to have a competition? I haven't tried to ride a magic broom in a long time. Hearing this, Lockhart was stunned for a moment. He suddenly didn't understand what Dumbledore was up to, but after thinking about it, he nodded and agreed. It's Milner, headmaster. Then you have to give in to an old man like me. Now that I'm old, my reaction speed may not be as fast as you young people. After hearing this, Lockhart said jokingly, haha, with your level, I may not be able to catch up with you, even if I try my best. You defeated 2 Dark Lords in succession back then. With my level, how can I beat you? If I'll let you go, then I won't even be able to touch the edge. Haha. Hearing Lockhart's praise, Dumbledore smiled, stretched out his hand, and soon took out a magic broom in his hand. Dumbledore rode on it, and flew into the air. Seeing this, Lockhart also smiled, and took out a magic broom from his space bag. This was the magic item he prepared to use for high altitude escape when he first crossed over. At the same time, he also rode on it, and controlled the magic broom, to fly high in the sky according to his memory. Soon, he flew next to Dumbledore, and the two flew towards the top of Hogwarts together. Whoosh! Ha! Feeling the whistling wind on his face, Lockhart gently shook the ring, and a transparent protective shield appeared in front of him, blocking the strong wind. Dumbledore next to him saw it, and quietly cast a spell on himself. Soon, the two flew high in the sky, overlooking Hogwarts below, looking at the tall castle, the pointed tower top, the cylindrical tower body, and the buildings that rose and fell. Finally, Lockhart and Dumbledore found a relatively flat tower top, landed on it, and looked out at the black lake in the distance together. Looking at the green lawn, the sparkling lake, and 3 or 2 students sitting by the lake and playing, Lockhart suddenly felt that the world was quiet at this moment. He liked quietness, and such a charming picture made him more addicted. Let him relax his mind and think more. Cough. After a while, Dumbledore coughed lightly, looked at Lockhart who had come back to his senses, and said softly, how do you feel about seeing Hogwarts now? It's beautiful. Lockhart nodded without hesitation. I like the atmosphere of the school. Quiet, safe, and more importantly, there are many books. Haha. Dumbledore laughed after hearing this. Lockhart, I can feel your joy from your words. It seems that the Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts made the right invitation this time. I hope Hogwarts can become an inseparable part of your beautiful memories. Thank you, Principal. Lockhart nodded, and said meaningfully, I used to be proud of Hogwarts, and I hope that in the future there will be a chance to make Hogwarts proud of me. Haha, Lockhart, look forward to such a day. Dumbledore replied with a smile, and then asked as if casually, By the way, Lockhart, I'm getting older now, and I'm planning to write an autobiography to record my life. Why don't you help me with some advice? I see you've written quite a few books. Lockhart's eyes lit up when he heard this. This was a good thing. He could get to know Dumbledore better, and even improve their relationship. With this in mind, Lockhart nodded and said, "Principal, if you need any help, just ask. I don't dare to say much about other aspects, but I do have some experience in writing books." Hearing this, Dumbledore asked with interest, "Can you tell me about your experience in writing an autobiography? I heard that you wrote 7 books, and several of them are autobiographical." Hearing this, Lockhart's heart suddenly jumped, and he came to his senses. He cursed in his heart. He thought Dumbledore really wanted him to write an autobiography, but he didn't expect that he would bring up the books he wrote, and he immediately tightened the string in his heart. After thinking for a while, he said, "My personal experience in writing autobiographies is not applicable to you, the principal, because the original purpose of writing books is to make money, not to review what I have experienced. So I tend to write about things that readers like to see, make the language more humorous, and make the plot more interesting. Only in this way can they read it, including the autobiographies you read before. In fact, a large part of them are slightly exaggerated, otherwise it is a boring story and no one will read it." Hearing this, Dumbledore nodded as if he agreed. Seeing this, Lockhart continued, "If you write an autobiography, it is to warn the wizards behind, or leave some traces of life. In order to be passed down for a long time, you can actually focus more on telling some of the big things you have experienced, and what changes you have gained from them. I believe that such books will not only be read by many people, but also make it easier to further shape your image in the minds of all wizards. This is my little opinion." Hearing this, Dumbledore nodded, as if he agreed. "Very valuable point of view. Thank you for your advice, Lockhart. It seems that I will need your help in my autobiography later. After all, a book that lacks interest will lose many readers." Hearing this, Lockhart nodded without hesitation and said, "Okay, Principal." Then, he made a request. "However, Principal, I have been studying ancient runes and runes recently, and I hope to receive your guidance. After all, your achievements in the field of ancient runes are well known." Dumbledore thought about Lockhart's request, thought about it, and slowly said, "Okay, if you need anything, you can make an owl appointment in advance. I will wait for you in the principal's office. I hope my old bones can still help you a little." Hearing that Dumbledore agreed to his request, Lockhart's face was happy. "Of course you can help me. The new magic system in the future needs top figures like you to endorse it. In the new book period, follow-up data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top, so that they can see the latest chapters. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89, The Bull Escape Bird Showdown Club. The next day, in the 6th grade defense against the dark arts classroom. That's all about the fireball dragon. Guess what kind of magical animal this is? Lockhart strolled in the aisle in the middle of the classroom, waved his wand lightly, and used magic to outline a emerald green creature similar to a long snake, but it had a red gem on its forehead and a single horn. Swish. Soon, Lockhart saw many students raising their right hands. After a quick glance, he gently pointed his wand at a Gryffindor student. "Percy, you answer." Percy, who had red hair and was slightly handsome, stood up and introduced. "Professor, this is a longhorned water snake, a unique species in the United States, a 5x level magical creature with the ability to be invisible and fly. It is said that it has been hunted in large numbers and is an extremely rare endangered species." And soon, Percy told all the longhorned water snakes he knew from books. Percy's introduction was good. Lockhart nodded slightly and praised. "Gryffindor gets 5 points." Percy's face lit up after hearing this. As a prefect, adding points to his own college is a good thing in itself. Especially when his 2 younger brothers always deduct points from the college. This extra point can make up for it. After watching Percy sit down, Lockhart continued to speak slowly, in addition to Percy's introduction. In fact, the horned water snake has another unknown ability. It has a certain psychic ability and can hypnotize wizards or magical animals with weak mental power. And the horned water snake is also the representative magical creature of Alvermorny College in the United States. As Lockhart spoke, he watched all the students start to take notes, nodded slightly, and continued to add. In fact, it may be difficult for you to encounter a horned water snake, and even encountering one is a kind of luck. But who can blame the fact that the test questions in recent years have more or less tested some magical creatures of the United States, and the horned water snake is one of its characteristic species. It is very likely to appear in the test paper, so you have to pay attention. Later, Lockhart introduced some other information about the horned water snake to the students in detail, and how to escape if they really encountered it. Well, it is impossible to fight. With the level of these students, they are lucky not to be confused by the horned water snake. After a while, Lockhart finished talking about the horned water snake. Suddenly, a Gryffindor student with short hair, a somewhat burly figure, and wearing a red wizard robe raised his right hand. Lockhart saw it and asked, "Oliver Wood, what do you not understand?" Oliver Wood stood up and asked Lockhart, "Professor, you just talked about a lot of magical creatures that we can't fight. How about you talk about some that we can beat?" "Yes, Professor, talk about it." "Yes, Professor, I listened to a class on dangerous magical animals today." Facing the expectant eyes of all the students, Lockhart thought for a moment, nodded and said, "Okay, let's talk about some interesting magical animals that you can fight with." As he said, Lockhart gently waved his wand and used the magic wand to outline a magical creature with blue hair and a pair of small wings on both sides, similar to the dodo. Many girls looked at the furry body floating in the air, two pairs of small blue wings, and two cute creatures with eyes like sapphires. They exclaimed in a low voice, "So cute. So adorable. I really want it." Lockhart was not surprised by the exclamations of the Gryffindor and Slytherin girls, because the ball escape bird floating in the air was indeed very cute, very adorable, and very popular with girls. However, the fiery eyes of those burly boys made him feel a little strange. He shook his head slightly, swept away the distracting thoughts in his heart, and introduced it directly. "This is a bull escape bird, known for its sharp intuition. It has the ability to teleport in space. Basically, every time it flaps its wings, it is a precursor to its teleportation. It is a 3x level magical creature. For you, you can definitely beat it. But, whether you can catch it is not certain." At this point, Lockhart's face floated with a faint smile. "Professor, have you encountered it before? How to catch it? It's really cute. I want one too, Professor." "Professor, how many gold galleons do you think it will cost to buy it?" As soon as Lockhart finished speaking, a group of girls asked questions. It can be seen that they like such cute pets very much. Well, Lockhart actually likes it very much, but it's a pity. "I have only seen the bull escape bird once before, but unfortunately I didn't catch it." At this point, Lockhart shook his head slightly, then showed a half smile on his face and continued. "But I met a creature similar to the bull escape bird before, but it can't teleport, but its jumping ability is amazing. I tried to catch it, but unfortunately, I couldn't catch it at all. You may not imagine how slippery that thing is. I'm sure its intuition is definitely not worse than that of the bull escape bird, and it's even much higher. Ordinary wizards, unless they rely on luck, it's very difficult to catch it. Magical creatures like this have too sensitive intuition." At this point, Lockhart couldn't help but sigh. Creatures that can survive for thousands of years have more or less their highlights. Afterwards, Lockhart explained to the students some other relevant information about the bull escape bird and some other magical animals that are not dangerous, and they can barely fight. After a while, a Slytherin girl in a dark green wizard robe raised her right hand, and Lockhart tapped it with his wand. "Miss Clearwater, what's the problem?" Clearwater stood up and asked in an expectant tone, "Professor, we have been in class for 2 weeks, and we have been learning knowledge from books. When will the practical class start? Improve combat experience." Clearwater's voice fell, and Lockhart felt the expectant eyes of other students. After thinking for a while, he said with a smile, Practical class. Next class, I will adjust the course schedule. Also, if you feel that your combat experience is insufficient, my duel club will be open soon, and you can choose to join. Lockhart's voice fell, and the atmosphere in the classroom suddenly became more lively. Really, Professor? Professor, can I join your duel club? Professor, is there any threshold for the club? I got the nude certificate with 6 Os. Lockhart nodded and smiled and answered the students' questions one by one. Of course, everyone is welcome to join. There will be a threshold, but it won't be high. As long as you have a heart that wants to fight and want to learn magic, you can definitely join. Come on. After the atmosphere calmed down a little, Lockhart changed the subject and continued today's teaching. At noon, after class, Lockhart just answered some questions for the 6th graders. After waiting for all the students to leave, he took his notebook and walked towards the corridor. There is one thing I can do today. That is, ask Professor McGonagall for the resources of the Duel Club. P.S. Thanks to Langmay 0826, TXL, Crossing Duaxin, Woojinkson, Lenora's April's Rainy Season, and Kayi for their monthly tickets. Thanks to TXL, Xiang Zeduo, We Lose Ujiu for their awards, and thanks to readers such as Erlyang Sour and Spicy Noodles, Model Husband, and Saku Panshu for their recommendation tickets. It will be on the shelves tomorrow. In the remarks for the release, I will specifically thank all the readers who voted and gave me rewards. Thank you again to all the readers for your support during this period. 20 chapters will be released tomorrow. In the new book period, the reading data is extremely important. Please pin it to the top of the page for easy access to the latest chapters. Chapter 90 Lockhart's Journey as a Trader. Professor McGonagall's office. Professor McGonagall was looking at the scores of her own house at her desk. This morning, Gryffindor House scored a total of 30 points, which made her feel a little better. At least, the points that the little troublemakers in front had just deducted were made up. At this moment, suddenly, dang, dang, dang. Professor McGonagall, it's me. McGonagall was slightly stunned. When she heard the familiar voice, she said directly, come in, Professor Lockhart. She was a little confused. What did Lockhart want him to do? There was nothing big recently, and didn't he directly reject the application for the raw materials of the magic amulet last time? While McGonagall was thinking, Lockhart pushed the door and entered the office. Looking at Professor McGonagall, who was wearing a black wizard robe, Lockhart greeted her politely and said, "Good afternoon, Professor McGonagall. A few days ago, some of my friends sent me some gifts, including some magic skincare products. I thought I couldn't use them for the time being, so I prepared to give them to a few colleagues. This one is for you, and I will give another one to Professor Sprout later." As he said that, Lockhart placed the gift box he prepared in front of Professor McGonagall's desk. McGonagall gently looked at the gift box in front of her, looking at the gorgeous decoration outside, then reached out to open it. Looking at the familiar skincare products inside, she was a little surprised. The Travers family's Youth Type 3 skincare products are not cheap. Looking at the valuable gifts on the table, Professor McGonagall, who is known as the Vice Principal of Hogwarts, was immediately a little wary, but couldn't help asking, "Is this also what you sent to Professor Sprout?" Hearing Professor McGonagall's question, Lockhart nodded without hesitation and said, "Of course, Professor McGonagall." Then, he explained, "That professor gave me these because I have some cooperation with the Travers family, so the price is actually not very precious. I still have several sets of rich ones. If you need them later, you can buy them at 50% of the price through my relationship." Professor McGonagall thought after hearing this. Such a set costs 9 gold galleons, which can be used for at least 3 or 4 months. If it is 50%, it is about 4 or 5. With this calculation, the price is not too expensive. She has a salary of 50 gold galleons every month, not to mention other bonuses and benefits. Looking at Professor McGonagall, who was thinking, Lockhart smiled. Indeed, he had contact with the Sweet family who made magic skincare products before, but the relationship was not deep. It's just that he provided the Travers family with a Marvel potion, youth potion, through his own relationship the day before yesterday. Soon, I became the object of the other party's warm welcome, and these small gifts in the middle were just a sprinkle of water. Well, the career of a trader began from then on. No matter which world, women's money is the easiest to make, especially Lockhart had studied the profit model and profit margin of those cosmetics in his previous life, and he couldn't help but secretly smack his lips. Being a woman, you can't escape the beauty, especially many of his fans are women. This is also equivalent to self-production and self-sale, which makes much more money than selling combat and healing potions. Well, men actually have some pain points, but Lockhart was a little afraid of a bad reputation, so he didn't dare to stick to it. After all, potions that help with pleasure make money quickly, but their reputations get ruined quickly. He aspires to be the father of reform in the wizarding world, but he is not interested in being. Professor McGonagall quickly came back to her senses from her thoughts, looked at Lockhart, and asked in a slightly gentle tone, "Professor Lockhart, thank you for your gift. May I ask what can I do for you today?" Although the other party brought some gifts, she still couldn't let down her guard, as she was always known for her strictness and seriousness. After hearing this, Lockhart smiled and said, "Professor McGonagall, some time ago, Headmaster Dumbledore asked me to hold a duel club. Recently, I have become familiar with the current level of students, so I'm preparing to start it. It may require some resources. The headmaster asked me to ask you to apply for it." As he said, Lockhart took out a list of resources and handed it to Professor McGonagall, adding, "These are some resources I thought I might need. If there is no problem, I will go to collect the relevant resources." The professor took the list handed over by Lockhart and did not reply to what Lockhart said, but carefully observed each resource. After a while, Professor McGonagall frowned and pointed at the list and asked, "Professor Lockhart, do you need so many vitality tonic potions? Isn't it just a group of little wizards practicing fighting and resting on the side if they are tired? Why do we need potions? Also, there are quite a few magic practice targets." Soon, Professor McGonagall took the resource list given by Lockhart and asked some questions. Seeing this, Lockhart sighed inwardly, thinking that it would be fine if McGonagall was as easy to talk to as the one in his previous life's school. Fortunately, he had made Plan B in advance. Then he explained, "Professor McGonagall, first of all, dueling itself is a very energy-consuming thing, so they need to adjust their mental state quickly to cultivate relevant experience. This is my personal shallow opinion. Also, dueling cannot rely solely on spells, wands, and techniques. I think potions cannot be ignored either." Hearing this, Professor McGonagall's brows were mixed with a hint of doubt. What she said was not bad, but the more she listened, the weirder it sounded. Then, Lockhart continued to add, "Also, I forgot to tell you that this list is not for 1 month, but for 1 quarter. Plus, this is the first time that the school will hold the battle club, and I'm not sure how much to prepare, so the requirements for the first batch of resources have been relaxed. If there are more, you can continue to use it in the next quarter. This is better than having too few resources and causing some students to be unable to practice." Hearing Lockhart's explanation, Professor McGonagall nodded, thought for a moment, and felt that what he said was right. However, after thinking about it, Professor McGonagall still said, "Professor Lockhart, there are indeed a lot of resources on the list. Well, give me another 1-month resource list. I'll take a look, and we'll talk if it's appropriate." Hearing this, Lockhart immediately took out another list and handed it to Professor McGonagall. After Professor McGonagall took it, she looked at Lockhart strangely, didn't say much, and looked down at the list in her hand. Seeing this, Lockhart looked at Professor McGonagall with some expectation. When asking for resources for the first time, you have to open your mouth a little wider anyway, so that you can bargain later. Sure enough, after a series of preparations, Professor McGonagall signed this resource list. However, Professor Lockhart, I will come back to see the general situation of students using potions in this month, so that it will be convenient for targeted replenishment of resources later. Hearing the first sentence after Professor McGonagall signed, Lockhart sighed helplessly in his heart, but still nodded with a smile on his face, indicating that it was no problem. Well, why is Professor McGonagall so difficult? Is it possible for a professor as rich as me to embezzle? PS. 20 chapters will be updated tomorrow, which contains the preliminary ideas of Lockhart to transform the wizarding world. Please support this book. The first order data is extremely important for this book, which directly determines the future recommendation and performance of this book. Therefore, although I know that a large number of readers who like this book may be lost when it is put on the shelves tomorrow, I ask you to order a first order before you leave, considering that Zinchen has been updating all the time. Please everyone. It will be on the shelves tomorrow. Please support me, readers. The first order data of a new book directly determines the future recommendation of this book. Please support me, readers. Chapter 91 remarks on the release. I just received accurate information that it will be available at 12 noon tomorrow. At present, this book has been updated for more than a month. Because of the strong support of all the readers, the data of the book is good in all aspects, and Sanjiang has also been available. Xingchen is here to thank all the readers. Sanjiang, I didn't expect that I, who failed, could be available. Without the support of all the big guys, I'm afraid I can only think about it in my dreams. To be honest, I have really dreamed about it. Haha, I didn't expect that my dream would come true now. Secondly, I would like to thank Jiu Ming, who guided me in writing before, and the editor Jiangcha. Jiu Ming helped me avoid many detours, and Jiangcha's recommendation was even more powerful. Well, let's not talk about anything else. Let's talk about the update rules that everyone is most looking forward to. This book will be officially available at 12 noon tomorrow. It will be available at 12 noon. 20 chapters will be updated on time first, so that everyone can read it at once. As for the daily updates in the future, in order to ensure the quality, I will update 4 chapters every day, which is about 8,000 to 9,000 words, so that the quality can only be kept at a higher level. There are also additional updates in the middle. I want to add 1 chapter for every 200 monthly votes. If someone gives 10,000 rewards, I will also add 1 chapter. If there is really a leader. Apart from other things, I will stay up late to write and add at least 5 chapters. Even if the manuscripts are used up, I will continue to make up for it on the basis of 4 chapters later. Also, starting from 1000 average subscriptions, 1 chapter will be added for every 100 average subscriptions. Having said that, Xingchen here asks all readers to make the first order tomorrow. The first order is extremely important for the future performance and recommendation of this book. Therefore, although I know that the book may lose a large number of readers who like this book when it is put on the shelves tomorrow, I ask you to give a first order before you leave, considering that Xingchen has been updating it. Please everyone. Finally, it is about the list of readers who have been supporting this book during this period, voting for monthly tickets, recommending tickets, and rewarding. I carefully sorted out the nicknames of each reader, but due to the large number, there may be errors and omissions. If you find that I have written it wrong or missed it, please point it out in time, and I will correct it immediately when I see it. Press and hold the name to comment on the paragraph or chapter, and I can see it immediately because there are too many people. I have sorted the list according to the background, and the order of the nicknames is random. I will only keep the nicknames and will not count other data. It also includes both Gideon and questions reading. Thank you again to all the readers for your support. Without your support, it would be difficult for this book to achieve such a good result. The list of readers who support this book: Xiang Zuo, Cooking Wine Around the Stove, Pi, Saint Envoy, Golden Grandmaster, Fedi Duizin, Young Dragon Knight, Leo Lu Tao, Daddy 1,827,374, The Mouse Steals Eggs and Eats the Wolf, The Carrot's Name is Taken by the Dog, Gust of Wind, Level 13, Sunshine Community, How Is It, Guanbao Forming a Bicycle, Li Zun, Li Zining, Li Karu, Dao Dao and Mammoth, Time is as quiet as foam, I don't want to pass on the fire, I love Panfei, How to Solve the Problem, Only Getting Rich Quickly, This Life, Leisurely Clouds Become Rain, A Tribute to the Harvest of Souls, Zhang Kun Shui, Asada, Azathithkin Lassi Ren, Yi Hebeng, Clumsy, Fly, The Running Camel, Guam Yu, Xiang Kan, Defeated, Zara Tangshan, Deliberately Kixing, Instant Noodles. Wuji Wansu, empty flying fish, blank name, stranger, not so lonely fat house, people who are often out of books, persimmons, trees that have been opened, Mitsu bottom, Fengminger, Fangkanaiuyi, why can't I use character expressions, anxious, heart tune to solve the problem. Only getting rich quickly. Book friends 150,902,231,441,660 book friends. 160331102152665771690681438 Friends of the Starry Sky Heart Adjustment Star Gap Lost Sword No Trace 0W0 Lyle Heart and Stomach Earth Shadow Inoki Talented Big Mountain Big Winders Big Brother Takes You Flying Great Emperor Very Pure Great God Wooming Shang Plays the piano N 199,660,990 Shik A0435 SSCBTTXLWHT 2004 WHT 20041 X Zoo 3 Chicken Legs a Day Secondary Element GG Cross Judgment Dry Autumn Several Lives on This Time of Prosperity Chari Feather Dada 85 IHC 960,310 King Lynch Akulujan 20,161 Earth Shadow Inoki Small Town Ancient Language Small Vegetables Come and See the Mountain Evening is worried about the 1,000 changes of the appearance of the small people in the mortal world. Advertising producer hardcover opened Persimmon Chianx and new and GG Loveless Old Youth, Ruthless Old Black Cat, Ruthless and Coquettish Mirrorless Fairy, Cloud Dragon Master, The Sun is Coming, The Driver Does Not Need a Woman, The Guardian of the Stars, The Male Cat Died, The Moonlight Wind Chime. Book friends 160,401,221,422,298 Book friends 160,709,123,946,609 Book friends 17,032,111,805,228 Book friends 2017031915524767 Book friends 2018030322092130 Book friends 2018060402035297 Book friends 2018060402035297 Yufeng Nani Han Ki UKLIU account Dal 1527 Xiang Liu Jiang Liming Ziyuxi Zizu and Kang Liao Yuen Sao Ya Yuen Su Hu Divine Knife God Killing Demon King Monkey Brother Strong Welding RR Porridge Dad Register Thought 00 Soul Sleep Weight Loss Renzan Ke Needs a Woman to change XIAO Carrot Night Rainstorm Blows Away Step on the World Heart Adjustment Butterfly Snow Book friends 202003152111211347 Book friends 202103120018333069 Book friends 2021090617401395 Book friends 202110011190249992 Book friends 202205091938091115 Bookworm Alpha Fantasy City Bone Job Dragon Battle Northming Dragon Vein 08 to 6 Uzaoi Dio Neris Renshan You Called Me Edamame April Rainy Season 4 Cool All Lose Eternal MONI's Perfect Masterpiece Drink Alone in the Dry Autumn The Big Cat Who Raises Fish Shenai Inhaled in Luogia U and Dinosaur HKL Lino Rusatong U Jesiah Jing Maple Leaves Dawn Breaks the Cold River Rosso Boring Belding Dangs is Aoling Muan Tang Yichin Pink Cut Black Sheo Pyra Joe Flowing Clouds Zizu Lia Shuteo Horida 1250038079720706048 Uanquan Guide Ko Wen's Legacy Inheritor Kaimei Zyogis Words Magic Eagle Domineering King of Helmenja 13457 Natural Temperament is grasped firmly. Dawn Heart Our Hearts Chen Fragrant Rice TXL Rabbit 64625 A Pot of Millet Porridge Hand Torn Crown Gudako Yayu Shang Namonpa Skull Knight Exaki Mihan Begonia Flowers Have Not Been Sleeping My Job for Cool or Lose the Way of Nature's Arxio Night Rain Purple Maple Leaves Leisurely PPP Purple Flying Fish Row God Gradually Becomes Hairy All heavens are in disaster, all things are fearful, live in the world, extinguish the heavy building, Saint Fredino, Glory Comes Back in Times, Zhang Sibangan Ukikes, Zizhang Zifeng Zimmer, The Source is Really Out of Power, Broken Wings, Dead Branches and Rotten Leaves, Battle Platform, Moon Rider, My Name is Entropy, Fighting Fairy, Snow Flying Moon, Bird Moon, White Silk, Original Diamond Candy, Yuan Shi Shianzan, Blood Desire Demon God 1, Forecast Says Rain, Summer Solstice, Sleep Rain, Archer Hui, Yuji, Jun Shifen, Yunnan Entertainment, Yaolang Yu Chang, There is an Uncle Named Wu Jun Maman, Ghost TT, Zino Tune, Eternal Foam, Yeking Jushi, Yabuyi, One Page, Lose a Lifetime, Tire Lifetime Obsession, Iraga Kiwui is My First Class Salted Fish, A Whale Falls, and All Things Are Born, A Cynical Intoxicated Person, Cover the Green Lamp, Nightwind 1991. Night the Encounter Yeo 031021571315 Yang Mei Blood Knight Blackbird Star Wars Starry Sky Little Book Guest Paper Novel Book Friends Oh Little Quick Dragon Little White Zio Shengdu and Zio Desert Want to talk about a romance Fragrant Grass Leisure Clouds Become Rain Love to Eat Meat Lion Fog Without Fog Mistaken Objects Dance Moon Tears My Flirting You Are Not As Good As Worry Free Fan Wooks in Sacrifice Life Unparalleled Big Snake Princess Board People Without Mirror Fairy Witchy and Woofa Natural I Really Have Superpowers I'm Really Little Grey I Will No Longer Be a Stubborn Mosquito Learning Giant Source Welly Ball An Unpredictable Gan for the House Only Welly Long Myo Past Events Follow the Wind BO Push Fans Different Books Synchronous Satellite 101 Cheyenne Lin Cheyenne and Sometimes Rainy The World Goes Out Ceiling Unpredictable Demon 008 Cheyenne Lao Unpredictable Cheyenne Chang Tang Yichin Tang Song Yuan Ming King Stepping on the Jet Crossing Sumuzu Strontium presents The Main Works Department Calls a Push Shuang Book Friends Dream Sky Blue Book Friends 854 asterisk 915 Book Friends 854 asterisk 388 Book Friends 854 asterisk 118 Book Friends 2022052913080670 Book Friends 202205031705233330 Book Friends 2022050317052330 Book Friends 202201141917401114 Book Friends 202201121606088843 Book Friends 2021120222175048 Book Friends 2021062615171315 Book Friends 202103271202596661 Book Friends 20210301105383351796 Book Friends 20210301105262095138 Book Friends 202110410410474569 Book Friends 2020092923101815 Book Friends 202007101253319118 Book Friends 2020050923120055 Book Friends 202001261805545535 Book Friends 201912171258511120 Book Friends 201911301531103119L Book Friends 201910082203470997 Book Friends 201909140958224999 Book Friends 2019090421215350 Book Friends 2019070700433397 Book Friends 2019070110492795 Book Friends 2019060109040964 Book Friends 2019060109040964 Book Friends 2019051711395814 Book Friends 2018110420100514 book friends 2018110220434231 book friends 2018100305460193 book friends 2018082220200946 book friends 2017123113590281 book friends 2017123015543297 book friends 2017112717534784 book friends 201710222223344206 book friends 2017080112073540 book friends 2017070215160566 book friends 2017021209381389 book friends 2017020816065145 book friends 161,128,224,814,177 book friends 161,002,041,612,254 book friends 160,607,122,524,927 book friends 151,213,083,354,438 book friends 141,203,213,138,015 book friends 141,101,061,010,608 book friends 140,814,192,558,086 book friends 14,061,218,322,978 The scholar has no Confucianism. The length of the watch is a shooting star. The fashion master is perfect. The big beard is rising. The dead young man is happy. The scenery is thick. The salted fish who works slacking off. What is RSEN 203109157290802223 evils and 3 horizontals, young and handsome, wheezy, the night stained with red blood, I'm short of money and lost again, was church, Kingdom, love, King Gaiu Taoist, King Kian 9527. King Mo Kians who pushes George Jost II, the diving Wow Tao, Kian Iu. Yiki Leia, only use the face to name, Panheo, climbing a mountain the kind of hard-working cabbage that comes from behind. Nickname 223, you are always Otterson's blue poop, pastor, mu ya mu yees and Shimlak Baron, a certain idle and stay up late cultivator, Mo Ran Yulin Hujan loves Sansanemo when which number 18 Dao Zhi Kang Mugwo cat fate neurotic. Fate Honey 1973 Dream God Dream Suffocated Menshishi 555 Beautiful Starry Sky, Cats, Books, and Dogs, Slow Walk, Scenery, Luo Zui King Pueluo Fission Building Leo Deng Longs and Bellyming Dragon Fish Terry and Stuff Your Mouth Flowing Day 123,456 Wandering Clockwork Zero Snow Forest Zao Chen Forest Cottage Liang Bao Chuan Li Crazily Lisha Rolled Reed Head Lazy Cute Yang Sloppy Strange Ramu Pull Wrong Sleepy Oh Yeah Koya Zao Zao Bao Keyilan Reading the Dragon King Junyan Yin Tangled What Name to Give Whale Falls, and all things come to life Janai Wari Tang Si Today a Craftsman Feni Jiangman Ziakin Emboy Jan Pure Self Cultivation Simple Life Masked Cat G Push Clamp and Chirp GGA Machine Vulcan 1945 Rocket Can Hot Pot Shabu Ice Cream Mixed Dream Chasing Me Flower Pity Waning Moon House On Boy Prehistoric Law Black Dragon Flame Crane Fall He No Man's Land Sweet Rice Dumpling Dipped in soy sauce vast clouds misty rolling throw light ya light $sign dangerous like $arrow light like $arrow ancient ink mingune zangwini and waiting eyes follow dry feather leaf cover knee zero gain e fu sheng ru meng fei fashion master 999 miles around squatting in the grave pooping du men he lun reader 2021012515453694486844 Du Wang Yu, Dong Fang Wang Zhu. Ding He Zion Zen Emperor, Prince, Empire, Shiank Emperor, Dun Zhi Quan, Darui, Great Kind Man, Atmosphere, Big Boobs Dad, when can I come to a Wenli Wen, Cu Lang, this user nickname has been deleted, Cizhu Chuming, Eat Wei Man, Eat Sugar Cake, Burn the Back of the Head, Morning and Evening, Beyond Heaven, Smash, Virudo, Was, Super Elgin, Eternal Production, Don't Like Fish Slices, Chess Game, Unknown Fire. Yi Bua Yi, Bo, Only Skinned Ghost, Waves, Tao Tao Y, Bings and Bing Leng, Don't Come for a While, Extracurricular Lover, Sad Zhu Beiri, White Horse is a Meteor, Secret Love, Scold Love Lala's Dead Fat House, AIC Bay Late ZZZW Shu Huan Y Wang WHT 2004 A Staying Kang Tata Rustanayang Kang Stage First Forum Sim Summitor SLCVD Sky X in Summon Blow S Rungless QD 0 BP Omo 233. ONRPHF 5 Night End, Misakilev. Minglux Dex JJC 1221 Juan 1 Hibiki 7231 Z Hell, Jif D Geminigd 0 BPF Z Doingdlum D Rodsk J Elite 1 trillion and 8,220,347,097 FHD 4Q Drunk Rain Lilac Drunk Book. Demon Drunk Dust Cloud the most wayful mage's favorite 6 walnuts purple jade scorpion purple maple leaf purple flying fish purple ice wolf clumsy fly bamboo zixin bamboo 007 bamboo forest moon bamboo crane old monster the most beautiful child in the world the catastrophe of the world Wednesday all living beings are ordinary Zangli Zyadakan can finally have a name tissue wrap apple only windmill. Castrate Pen 6 Saints Know the Wind ZIL 2020127214342063 Zimei Jiang's Hanjin is really out of power Zao Yij cockroaches want to be the emperor of Europe Zhang Shua he stands at home. Nan is the king of the world Yunan Boli Anjan Ao Yuxi Zixi Moonlight U Bailing Telescope Yuan's House Suzy Cat Yuan Luneng Neng Desire Blood Demon God 1 Rain Summer Solstice Sleeping Rain Ucha Hui Jin Shigi Entertainment Yaolang has a little monster with soul. Chopped green onion with electricity. Don't approach friends dreamy sky blue friends haha batch friends break into the lolita fried cucumber. Yao Shang user nickname has been cancelled vaguely wind and rainy issue cold river billion girls dream was teaches a smoke and wine tripod a sea of anger prince is afraid to live in the world extinguish 1 second 10 pages of work a whale falls and all things come to life night break into the lolita night the encounter leaf heart leaf blue tune demon emperor cigarette but 4.5 looking for changing clothes grass Zuan Fenglin. Zuan Ki Chengsu main star love feather starry sky Huayu star 101 hard sacrifice mood preface efficiency first 23,333 Zaya King gradually gathered the exiled immortal poem. Zayana's has Zayana song loves to eat. Zayana song loves to eat. Zaya Fengli, Zayanayan Shingayu, Zayan's Hanxian Lu, Yuli Wu, Wu Kamian, Wu Ai. What about Wuxin Shuming Wu? Boredom, Wu-Ain, I'm also old, I'm Shura, I'm a poor man, am I a beauty, I love Panfei, I love, Lolly, Pain Devil, the boy under the tongue tree, Tong Chenan, dessert is not sweet, Cheyenne Linty, Sword Steps, Four Seasons, Tang Yichin, Tachente, 2019051713958144, The Sky Wings of the Sun God, she said no, go with the flow, the drifter dances with the maple, sour plum egg fried rice, Suan, Sumyuksu, book friends. 202205230348188061, book friends 2022041811494789. Book friends 202109151729080022. Book friends 202108112116414440. Book friends 202106260750383114. Book friends 202106191221032338. Book friends 202,105,291,400,682. Book friends 202103271202596661. Book friends 202007311325043334. Book friends 2020731132504334 book friends 2020731132504334 book friends 2020022403564541 book friends 2019101422502421 book friends 2019101422502421 book friends 2019091160537692 book friends 2019062720161165 book friends 2019051711395814 book friends 201903011724088856 book friends 2018092010421887 book friends 2018092010421887 book friends 201805192323511818 book friends 201805192323511818 book friends 201805192323511818 book friends 2017122320563427 book friends 2017111822243736 book friends 201710191801054449 book friends 201710191801054449 book friends 2017051718010108 book friends 2017051718010108 book friends 2017032423005766 book friends 2017032423005766 The world is full of 100,000 10 perfect big beards. Corpse Mountain has a road, diligence is a path, Saint Jalanganas is spear, Saint Envoy, Golden Master Fei Shenjin Ming. When can you come up with a wild and profound text? ZK Mountain has a road, diligence, mountain evening, just worry about me, I don't control anything. If there is love, autumn wind, a leaf, follow the stars to the dome stone, George Jost II, or thousand books, the real person weeps, unicorn, dandelion, young lion, pinhoopian, sun sankson, called Pippi Pippi, fragrant rice, Peking Gayu, fat Peng Peng, fat brothers great mountain climbing the kind of hard-working cabbage that comes from behind. Are you willing to pick up soap for me? Make a book panic Mu Ye thanks and a friend 20,307,313,250,434. 1 Momo. What the hell? Yomo. Eagle. Model. Husband. Name. Soup. Sensitive. Dream. Miyazaki. Miyazaki. Sunshine 13. Dream. Wake up. Dream. Got. Dream. Want to be thin. Dreamy. Sky blue. See in front of the door. No one is clean. Nothing. Nickname. Mayoha. Take your time. I'm not in a hurry. Slow flying. Stupid bird. Dragon battle. Zuan Huang. Dragon battle. Beaming. Dragon Marsing Kong. Liaza. Liuayu. Liming. 0 degree. Linksing. Ken. Lynchian Xiaozhuo. Liardro. Lion. Chatting. Lord. Lisu. Lisha. Thunder God, BB, Leaping, Daoluo, Radar, Old Tire, Ziyang Liu, Old Reedhead, Lino. Ruther, from the Sloppy Monster, Kun, 1, Crazy Cool Blank, Name, Can Comfort the Dust, Can Come with a Wild Text, Cocoa, Milk, Sugar, Anti-Poison Sect, Dragon King, who reads books, seemingly simple, Jan Liu, Hurricane Wings, must be extraordinary, just not preferential, saves Iasheng, not a whale falls, but all things live, stunned carders, audience, Lord, evolved crow. Lonely winter, season's end, you are panicking, 20 years of books and swords, nothing becomes yellow, yellow stewed egg, wasteland illusion, dream, chasing me, incarnating as an old Taoist, lotus wind, smoke and willow, how strong, Feng Mina is crazy, punishing the little monster, Feng Nai, the devil in the wind is crying at the seaside, Fenglin Umo, Fenghua, Fing Fengaiao. 202,521,317,064. 1 waste. 2019030117240856. 1 Fishian who flew, the knife fan. Husband reported 14. 2 teals of hot and sour noodles. The devil also loves peace. Readers 1404045387180834816. Alone, alone, love, B, plain soybean milk, and fried dough sticks. Dongri, Dongwen, Dongfang, Wangzhou, The Second Day, Shortcomings, Emperor Tunsfist, Disney, The Runaway Lamb, Loki, Smelly, Silk, Ghosts and Monsters Plus, The Carrot That Eats the Wolf, Chengxian IE, Riding the Wind to Fight the Flute, The Inheritor, The Morning and Evening, The Morning and Evening, The Warm, The Super Large Octopus Balls, The Vegetable Throw 5, The Colorful Dance in the Air, The Step of Not Envying the Mandarin Ducks, The Password That Cannot Be Said, The Incredible Nickname, Tartarus, The Dream God Taman Nopere Mes 20210306045334038 Layer K0435 SHCH 2006 GT4Q Gaz 100 1. Exar Mighty Utamo Ito Insane Man DDRTHFGH Dexam Mighty Dagger. Chapter 92 Lockhart's New Magical Research. Lockhart walked out of Professor McGonagall's office and walked along the corridor towards the headmaster's office. He didn't have much hope of getting a lot of free resources from Professor McGonagall. Oh, as expected of Vice Headmaster McGonagall, who is always known for her seriousness and strictness. Not only is she strict in managing students, but she is also strict in applying for resources from professors. But it doesn't matter, now he has found a new way to make money. With money on hand, free resources may not be available in large quantities, but can't they be paid for? It's nothing more than the cost. Lockhart walked up the stairs while thinking. He still has to go to the headmaster's office today. Yesterday he couldn't figure out whether Dumbledore was testing him. Because Dumbledore seemed to really want to write an autobiography, asked a few questions about the autobiography, and then started talking about other irrelevant things. This made Lockhart a little confused, but he was not too worried. Although his original body had committed enough crimes to be sent to Azkaban 7 times, he handled it cleanly. He recalled it over and over again, and basically couldn't find any mistakes or omissions. Well, it can be said that at present, unless he takes the initiative to disclose it, it is difficult to determine his crime. Therefore, except for the slight fear in his heart when he first met Dumbledore, Lockhart now feels very natural. Faced with a lot of thoughts in his mind, Lockhart shook his head slightly and quickly gathered his mind. He took the initiative to meet the headmaster today, not to talk to him about his previous affairs, but to talk about runes and ancient runes. He believed that, as long as he showed the mystery of runes to Dumbledore, he should be able to attract the interest of this top white devil. Let him join the ranks of workers in the new magic system. No, in the big family. Hogwarts, the headmaster's office. Dumbledore looked at the book, and from time to time he took out a sizzling bee candy from the side, put it in his mouth, and tasted it carefully. At his age, the sweetness brought by the candy can make him recall the joy and happiness of his youth. Suddenly boom. Dumbledore heard the sound of the stone door opening from outside. He was not surprised. He took out a cup and placed it on the table. At the same time, a chair quietly appeared opposite. Then he gently pointed his wand and slowly poured a large amount of honey into the cup. After a while, a figure came in quietly. Dumbledore waved and said, "Lockhart, you are here. I prepared a cup of honey for you. Come and try it. There are some other snacks, chocolate balls, sizzling bee candy, strange beans. Which do you like?" Lockhart looked at the chairs, drinks, and candies that Dumbledore carefully prepared. He felt a little tearful. This was much better than Professor McGonagall's. Although Professor McGonagall didn't say that he was rejected, it was not much different. The headmaster invited him to eat some delicious food as soon as he came in. When comparing the two, he said, "Thank you, headmaster." As he said that, Lockhart sat on the chair and first looked at the phoenix standing in front of the window. Then he took a sip of the honey on the table, looked at the book Dumbledore was reading, and asked curiously, Principal, have you been studying alchemy recently? Yes, Lockhart. I discussed some alchemy topics with a good friend before, and I wanted to take a look when I had nothing to do. Oh, Principal, if you want to restore some damaged alchemical items, I have some experience here. Lockhart glanced at the name of the book, Exploring the Restoration of Alchemical Items, and asked tentatively. No, Lockhart. Dumbledore refused directly, and then asked, what did you come to me for this time? Yesterday. Didn't you want to write an autobiography? I came to see if I could help. Also, I encountered some difficulties in my research, so I would like to ask the principal for your guidance. After hearing this, Dumbledore nodded silently, closed the book in his hand, and waved it gently, and the book immediately returned to the bookshelf. Then, he said to Lockhart, I'm studying my autobiography. Don't worry about that. Let's talk about your business first. Tell me about your research, progress and research difficulties. I hope that an old man like me can still help you. Hearing Dumbledore's reply, Lockhart restrained his inner thoughts and directly introduced. Principal, I talked to you about runes before. After my personal research, it is completely different from ancient runes. If ancient runes are focused on alchemy, and runes will have more amplification in terms of spells. As he said, Lockhart reached out and took out his wand and simply outlined a dark blue rune, Thunder. After the rune was formed, a series of tiny lightning flashes appeared on the rune. Lockhart continued, Principal, look, this is just a pure rune. I named it Thunder. You can see that it can resonate with the energy between heaven and earth, which ancient runes can never do. If we incorporate runes into spells, when we cast them, then it will undoubtedly increase the power of the spell. Hearing this, Dumbledore nodded thoughtfully and said, it sounds good. Is there anything special about it? There is also a huge difference between runes and ancient runes in terms of magical resonance. My personal research shows that runes only require 1/5 of the magic power to drive them compared to ancient runes. What does this mean? You should know, Principal. Dumbledore nodded, a hint of surprise appeared on his face, and said, go on, Lockhart. Lockhart seemed to sense Dumbledore's somewhat surprised attitude, and said in an excited tone, this means that casting spells through runes will further reduce magic consumption, and will be easier to learn. In simple terms, the threshold for learning has been lowered. Even some spells that were originally impossible to be cast by a squib have become possible. At this point, Lockhart obviously raised his voice a little. Seeing this, Dumbledore nodded slightly and motioned to continue. Without any hesitation, Lockhart began to introduce his research results and the impact of runes on the current magic system with an excited tone. However, Dumbledore's expression did not change much. He nodded from time to time and asked him to continue. This made Lockhart feel a little bit wrong. This time, he showed his latest research results, especially runes, which brought changes to the current magic system. For any wizard, it should be tempting. Why does it feel that Dumbledore's attitude does not seem to be as enthusiastic as it seems? After talking for a while, Lockhart paused while drinking a drink and asked tentatively, Principal, regarding the impact of runes on the current magic system, I think with your participation and your rich knowledge, the progress of the entire research will be rapidly promoted. I have recently compiled some research materials. If you are interested, I will give you a copy when I return. Chapter 93, Hogwarts Heritage Library. Dumbledore did not give a clear reply to Lockhart's request. After a moment of silence, he asked gently, by the way, Lockhart, regarding the research on runes, have you encountered any difficulties? Tell us about it, and let's talk about it. Dumbledore's performance made Lockhart's eyes flash with a hint of disappointment, but he still replied, Principal, I've been studying the relationship between runes and mental power recently. Needless to say, the importance of mental power to wizards. And I found that there are many runes that can nourish the wizard's mental power, but I found that the effect is too weak. I guess that mental power can be efficiently improved through combination. If a systematic improvement guide can be compiled, I believe it will be of great help to both young wizards and us in practicing magic. But it is currently stuck at a critical juncture. If you, the principal, can join, it will definitely promote further development of research. Hearing that Lockhart sent an invitation again, Dumbledore pondered for a moment, wondering what he was thinking about. Soon he showed a gentle smile, nodded slowly, and said slowly, "Lockhart, your research is very meaningful. But before joining, I still want to learn about the runes you mentioned." In response, Lockhart nodded without hesitation, with a look of joy in his eyes, and said quickly, "Okay, Principal, I will go back and organize my research experience and give it to you. If you can join our research, I believe that the results of this research will definitely be able to get the first-class Nightmare in medal." Dumbledore nodded in agreement to Lockhart's words, and then asked, "Lockhart, do you have any other ideas or questions? Speak up and talk about it together." Afterwards, Lockhart and Dumbledore told Dumbledore about the research results of the runes, and tried their best to show Dumbledore its wonders, especially the promotion of the entire magic system, and even a certain degree of cognitive subversion. The whole process can be said to be Lockhart constantly releasing one tempting hook after another, intending to attract Dumbledore into the new magic system. Dumbledore's performance was still nodding his head to show his approval or praise, but he refused to give a clear reply, and refused to take the bait. This made Lockhart's originally quite excited attitude slowly decline. "Good guy, I really thought Dumbledore was interested at the beginning, but it felt a bit perfunctory. If it kept like this, is it worthy of my earnest advice?" After a while, Lockhart took the initiative to end the topic and said goodbye. He felt that the timing was not right and he might need to give Dumbledore more time to think. Wait a few days and see Dumbledore's attitude. Maybe he will behave differently. Then, Dumbledore looked at Lockhart's departing figure and fell into deep thought. Suddenly, a voice came from his ear. "Genius, Lockhart is worthy of being a wizard from Ravenclaw." The portrait of Principal Delas Devon next to him said, "Dumbledore, how do you feel? Although I can't learn new knowledge now, through the previous exchanges, I can feel Lockhart's enthusiasm for research." The portrait of Principal Brown Kelly on the side also praised, "Lockhart will either become a top white wizard like Nick Mellor or a top dark wizard like Ruth Borg." The portrait of Headmaster Black said coldly, "That's a bit too much, Black. Lockhart is now a professor at Hogwarts and a well-known writer. How could he become a dark wizard like Ruth Borg?" "Dallas, what Black said is not impossible. I once taught Ruth Borg. He was a typical example of someone who went the wrong way because of his obsession with research. That's not impossible. You know, there are quite a few dark wizards from the Borg family. Maybe they were influenced by the family." Soon, the portraits of the headmasters hanging on the wall started a heated discussion about the views of dark wizards and white wizards. The topic even became more and more distorted, reaching the point of attacking the other college. One said that Gryffindor was a reckless man, and the other said that Slytherin was full of villains, while Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff were said to be lunatics and mediocre people respectively. Dumbledore listened to everyone's discussion quietly without any action. "Everyone, be quiet. Stop talking." A voice came from the portrait of Headmaster Armando Duppert. "We are all dead. Now we are just residual memories. Don't argue about the past. How Lockhart develops in the future has little to do with us. Listen to Dumbledore's opinion. He is the headmaster of Hogwarts now." As Headmaster Armando Duppert finished speaking, the voices of the portraits around him began to slowly quiet down. "Albus, tell me what you think of Lockhart?" Headmaster Armando Duppert asked Dumbledore. Regarding the question of his previous headmaster, Dumbledore pondered for a moment, rubbed his temples with some distress, and said slowly, "I can't judge, and I dare not make a judgment. I'm worried that once I make a judgment, it will push him to a path I don't want to see. After all, there is already a case. It was my stubbornness and prejudice that made him choose a sad path." At this point, Dumbledore paused, and Headmaster Armando Duppert also knew who the case Dumbledore was talking about was. Dumbledore also talked to him about the reason why Voldemort came into being. Then, Principal Duppert heard Dumbledore's somewhat curious tone. "However, I'm a little curious about which magical ruins Lockhart discovered the rune. It should not be in modern times. It may be a long time ago. I need to check some information to determine which era it is from. I think that, if we open the Heritage Library of Hogwarts, we may be able to obtain some valuable information." Hearing this, the images of the past Hogwarts principals hanging on the wall seemed to be stimulated by something, and said in unison, "Albus Dumbledore, are you sure to use the only chance of this year at this moment?" Seeing this, Dumbledore was not surprised at all, nodded gently, and said, "Anyway, there is nothing to do recently. Besides, I don't need to worry too much about the price of this entry." At this point, Dumbledore squinted his eyes and said with some distress, "I just hope that Lockhart will never get involved with Tom in the future. This will make me very embarrassed." Chapter 94 House Elves and Goblins. At this moment, Lockhart was on his way back to his office. Although he was a little disappointed with Dumbledore's performance just now, he could understand it. After all, he was the headmaster of Hogwarts and the White Lord who defeated the Dark Lord twice. It was indeed a little unrealistic for him to convince him with just a few words. Now even Voldemort's Horcruxes need to be preserved. Not to mention a living person. Alas, it is not easy to find a high quality worker, no matter in which world. Lockhart was on his way downstairs. Suddenly, he saw two familiar figures coming over. It seemed to be the Weirlight twins. "Professor, good afternoon." George and Fred greeted Lockhart in unison. "George, Fred, don't you have lunch at noon? Why are you walking from the Hufflepuff common room?" Looking at the direction they were coming from, Lockhart asked with some curiosity. The twins looked at each other, a smile appeared on their faces, and said, "Professor, we just went to the kitchen, and have already had lunch." Hearing the two's reply, Lockhart was thoughtful. He seemed to have some impression that there seemed to be a group of house elves in the kitchen of Hogwarts. After thinking for a while, Lockhart asked, "George, Fred, where is the kitchen?" The twins looked at each other, and George next to them said in a flattering manner, "Professor, can I tell you if there is a reward?" Fred next to him also flattered, "Professor, you are so handsome and rich, you will definitely not be stingy." "Yes, I heard that Professor Lockhart is the most generous professor in the entire Hogwarts. He also wrote 7 best-selling books." Lockhart looked at the two of them, listening to the two of them praising him one after another, as if they couldn't stop talking without a reward, and the corners of his eyes twitched slightly. After a pause, he said lightly, "I seem to remember that you two were together last night." Before Lockhart finished speaking, the funny guy immediately changed his words. "Professor, the kitchen is in the corridor of the Hufflepuff common room. Yes, there is a pear image over there. You can get in by digging it. Professor, I have something else to do here. I'll leave first." With that, the two ran towards the Gryffindor common room without waiting for Lockhart's reply. Looking at the two people leaving, Lockhart walked towards the Hufflepuff common room with a smile on his face. "Humph, little guys, I can't deal with you two." Soon, not far away, Lockhart saw the pear image mentioned by the two funny guys, walked forward, and tried to knock twice. He took 2 steps back, and as the pear image shook, a door appeared in front of Lockhart. After pushing the door in, Lockhart saw a large number of house elves wrapped inside, cooking non-stop. "Professor Lockhart, what can I do for you, Harvey?" Lockhart looked down at the house elf with wide eyes, drooping ears, and wrapped in clean cloth provided by Hogwarts. "Harvey, I want to ask, can you send some food to my office on time every day?" Lockhart asked. "Of course, Professor." Harvey nodded quickly after hearing the house elf. "Professor, what time?" "Harvey will deliver it on time. Just deliver it to the office in the morning and evening. There is no need for lunch." Harvey nodded quickly after hearing this. "Okay, Professor, is there anything else you need Harvey to do?" Seeing this, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction, and asked casually, "By the way, Harvey, I'm a little curious, how did you come to Hogwarts?" After hearing this, Harvey knocked his head with his hand and said proudly, "Professor, some of us were donated to Hogwarts by the previous owner, and some were born in Hogwarts. It is our happiest thing to be able to serve Hogwarts. If there is anything you need, just tell me, and Harvey will do it." Looking at Harvey's enthusiastic face, there was no other thought in his heart, as if he was willing to sacrifice his life for Hogwarts. Lockhart suddenly recalled the history of house elves in the book, and felt a little chill. In the wizarding world, the fate of losers is usually cruel. Then, Lockhart shook his head slightly, suppressed this thought in his heart, and asked curiously, "Harvey, does Hogwarts provide you with a salary?" "Salary?" Harvey asked with some doubts, and then showed some hatred and shouted loudly. Harvey doesn't need a salary. The house elves of Hogwarts never need a salary. It is our honor to serve Hogwarts. As he spoke, he kept hitting his head on the ground, making a bang 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 sound, as if he was ashamed of Lockhart's mention of salary. Okay, Harvey, stand up, don't hit your head. Lockhart, who knew the characteristics of house elves, ordered directly. Okay, Professor. Hearing Lockhart's order, although Harvey's face was full of hatred, he still stood up subconsciously. Seeing this, Lockhart couldn't help but sigh that the ancient wizards were really cruel. With a slight sigh, he asked directly, Harvey, how is your learning ability? Then, Lockhart added, if I give you a recipe, how long will it take you to learn it? Hearing Lockhart's question, Harvey replied loudly, Professor, Harvey's learning ability is very strong. Professor, what do you want to eat? Give me a recipe, and Harvey can make it in one day at most. So, the learning ability of house elves is not too bad. Lockhart thought to himself. He remembered that goblins and house elves looked similar, and in terms of bloodline, they were distant relatives. According to this reasoning, the nature of their magic should not be too different. In this case, if he gets the method of refining gold galleons later, then Lockhart kept thinking in his heart, and smiled at Harvey. Then Lockhart handed over a thick cookbook, world famous dishes, and said with a smile, Harvey, I will follow the recipe to make my food every day from now on. There are some foods I circled on it. Make these first. I'll taste them first. Okay, Professor, I will complete the task according to your instructions. Harvey saw the thick cookbook in front of him and nodded excitedly. It is an honor for every house elf to be able to serve the professors of Hogwarts. The more difficult the task, the happier they are. Lockhart nodded with satisfaction. Well, this is to test their learning ability. Only if they have a certain learning ability can they participate in the subsequent plan. It has nothing to do with enjoying food. Afterwards, Lockhart chatted briefly for a few words, then left the kitchen, and walked towards his office. Chapter 95 Snape's Regret. Hogwarts, Snape's office. Snape sat at the desk, looking at the 5 magical plants in front of him, and fell into deep thought. The magical plants that Lockhart needed to test had been basically identified. The results also surprised him a little. He originally suspected that Lockhart was involved in smuggling, but now his suspicions have been completely dispelled. But he can be sure that the other party has a magical relic in his hands. Either it is the relic of an ancient potion master, or it is the relic of magical plant cultivation. Otherwise, it is difficult to explain that Lockhart has so many unknown raw materials in his hands. Especially a few days ago, he specifically tried to discuss these materials. Lockhart did not hesitate at all, and directly chose to use materials instead of gold galleons. What does this mean? It means that Lockhart has a lot of materials in his hands. To be honest, Snape now regrets that he has lost his identity as a dark wizard. Otherwise, robbing is also a good choice. Of course, it's just a thought. As far as he knows, Lockhart is an explorer and his combat effectiveness is probably not weak. If you want to get all the raw materials completely, you can only consider drugging. Well, drugging is not impossible. Veritaserum and Oblivion Charm seem to work well together. No, I can't think about it anymore. The more I think about it, the more I feel the urge to do it. Snape quickly retracted his thoughts. He is now the potions professor of Hogwarts and the head of Slytherin College. Some things can't be done, or it's too obvious that they can't be done. Snape was thinking. Suddenly, dong, 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 dong. Professor Snape, it's me. Along with the knock on the door, Lockhart's voice rang in the office. Lockhart, please come in. The door is not locked. Hearing Snape's voice, Lockhart entered Snape's office. After taking a look at the magic plants on the table, Lockhart said in a somewhat pleasant voice, Professor Snape, what are the results of the test? All the tests have been completed. Snape nodded, took out a stack of appraisal books, handed them to Lockhart, and said, this is the result of the appraisal. You can take a look. There is my signature on it. If you sell it, you can directly say that it was appraised by me. No one will doubt the effect. Hearing this, Lockhart nodded and said, thank you, Professor Snape. There may be another batch of materials that need to be appraised later. I have to trouble you again. Hearing this, Snape squinted his eyes, and he didn't know what he was thinking. Soon, he controlled his voice, and said as gently as possible, "Lockhart, how many kinds of materials are there in the next batch?" Hearing Snape's gentle tone, Lockhart was a little uncomfortable, but still replied, "Same as this batch, about 17 or 18 kinds." Hearing this, Snape nodded secretly, and a smile appeared on his face. Lockhart suddenly felt uncomfortable, and inexplicably felt that the other party's smile seemed to have been seen before. Well, this guy wouldn't think of robbing me, would he? It shouldn't be the case. After all, the other party is the head of Slytherin and a professor at Hogwarts. Lockhart felt a little amused at the sudden thought that came to his mind. Then, before he had time to think about it, he heard Snape ask, "Lockhart, how many of these 5 materials on the table do you have? I want to order a batch." Hearing this, Lockhart suddenly nodded. It turned out that he was preparing to buy materials. No wonder his tone was much gentler. It seems that he thought too much. After thinking about it, Lockhart directly replied, "I still have some on hand, about 10 copies of each. How about it?" Snape nodded after hearing this, and said thoughtfully, "Okay, the price is based on the recommended selling price on the appraisal book. Do you think it's okay?" Hearing this, Lockhart said generously, "Don't worry, Snape, you and I are friends. If you buy it, you can get a 30% discount." In response, Snape took a deep look at Lockhart, nodded lightly, and didn't say much. Although his face was still cold, his eyes softened slightly. He mentioned 5 kinds of magic materials earlier, 3 of which were substitutes for some rare and even extinct potion materials, and the remaining 2 had very novel effects. It can be said that they were of great value. Okay, Snape. Let's put aside the materials for now. Now let's talk about the blood I gave you. Hearing this, Snape nodded gently, and said in a deep voice, "Lockhart, I basically used up half of the blood you gave me. If blood is used as the raw material, it is indeed possible to refine some potions that improve physical fitness. However, the prices of other materials are not low." At this point, Snape changed the subject, and said in amazement, "Lockhart, I have to say that it is a material with extremely high value. Before, if you still have this blood, I will buy it all." As he said, Snape explained, "After my testing, I found that blood itself has a very strong fusion effect. If used in refining potions, it has an effect similar to that of an accelerator. It can shorten the time of refining potions, at least by more than half." At this point, Snape's eyes rose with a touch of heat. The efficiency of refining potions has doubled, which has an incomparable temptation for everyone who refines potions. Lockhart was also a little surprised after hearing this, but then he suddenly realized it. Peter was able to successfully fuse the spider's blood and gain its abilities, which showed that the blood itself was extremely special. Otherwise, the grass on his grave would have grown 3 feet. Regarding Snape's request, Lockhart hesitated for a moment and said, "Snape, this is the only blood at the moment. But I'll see if I can get some more next month. We'll tell you when the time comes." Hearing this, Snape nodded and said nothing. Last time, he heard Lockhart say that he couldn't catch that magical creature similar to the ball-eating bird. "I'm afraid it's really difficult to get it in a short time." Then, Lockhart asked, "By the way, Snape, can this blood improve intuition?" Snape shook his head and said, No relevant effect has been detected yet. Maybe intuition has little to do with blood. If there is the other party's brain, I guess it may have a corresponding effect." Then, Snape added, "The ball escape bird, it seems to be like that." Hearing this, Lockhart took a breath. He could handle blood, but he was a little worried about whether he could return to the Harry Potter world smoothly if he handled Spider-Man's brain. He quickly shook his head and replied, "Blood is okay. Let's not talk about brain for now. We'll talk about it later." Hearing this, Snape was a little disappointed. The brain of the ball escape bird is a good thing, and similar things should not be too bad. Forget it. We can't kill the goose that lays the golden eggs. Blood will do. Then, Snape explained some things about materials, and had a cordial exchange with Lockhart about some adventures. Well, he deliberately tried to test how Lockhart dealt with poisonous magical animals and some means of avoidance. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96, Voldemort's Horcrux Routine. After Lockhart left Snape's office, he recalled their conversation just now, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt something was wrong. It would be fine if they talked about potions and talked about his adventure experiences, and he could be said to be a little curious about his experiences. But why did they talk about his avoidance methods for magical creatures, and even talked about his best forgetfulness spell? Although it was not much, just a simple mention. But all of a sudden, it touched Lockhart's sensitive nerve. Could this guy have discovered some traces of his original body? Well, maybe I was thinking too much. Because of Dumbledore these days, I was a little too sensitive. After returning to his office, Lockhart took out the black notebook hidden in the box again. He opened the latest page and wrote while thinking. From today's experiment, I found a rune that can increase vitality to a certain extent. To be precise, it should store and release a small amount of vitality. Although the amount is not large, if it is used in all chemical items, it is speculated that the storage limit may be further increased. Because it mainly obtains a certain amount of vitality through blood, I named it Bloodthirsty. After experiments, the Bloodthirsty rune can be used to convert the vitality in other people's blood into oneself, but the loss is very large. Lockhart casted disguise magic on himself as usual, and wrote some tempting research experience in his notebook. Suddenly, Lockhart found that the ink in his notebook began to fade gradually, and the speed was getting faster and faster. Soon, this page turned into a blank paper. Then, a line of text gradually appeared on it. Professor Lockhart, are you the recipient of the notebook? I'm an all-chemical item made by the former owner Tom Riddle. You can call me Tom. Seeing the change in the notebook, Lockhart's eyes flashed with joy. The fish finally took the bait. Then bang. Lockhart quickly closed the notebook. After a few seconds of pause, he opened it again and used the magic wand in his hand to cast spells on the notebook. Urgently show yourself. Show secrets. Attribute detection. After a series of spells, the notebook did not respond at all, as if it allowed Lockhart to use all his means. Or it was confident enough to make all of Lockhart's means ineffective. After a while, after waiting for Lockhart to stop casting spells, feeling another hidden wave of divine thoughts, he deliberately revealed a hint of nervousness, worry, and fear of his research being leaked. Then, a line of text appeared on the notebook. Professor Lockhart, I'm just an all-chemical item, not a black magic item. Then, another line of text appeared. You can find Tom Riddle's name in the trophy display room at Hogwarts. I have some of his memories. To some extent, I also went to school at Hogwarts 50 years ago. Seeing this, Lockhart took a pen and wrote, don't think I'm a little wizard who is easy to fool. I'm a genius Ravenclaw. I will verify every word you say. As long as there is any problem, I will destroy you. This time the notebook paused for more than 10 seconds, and a line of text appeared again. Professor Lockhart, don't worry, the rules of the notebook itself do not allow lying. Lies cannot appear in the notebook. This is the rule set by the refiner. You can rest assured. Seeing this, Lockhart's eyes flashed with a sneer. Not allowed to lie. If he really believed this, then he might be trapped to death at any time. Then, he felt another wave of extremely secret absorption of divine thoughts. This time Lockhart revealed the idea of testing. Paused for a few seconds, wrote in the notebook, tell me all the information about your original master Tom Riddle, and I will make a judgment. Okay, Professor Lockhart. In a sense, I'm Tom Riddle, and I have a lot of his memories and knowledge. I was originally a student of Slytherin. Next, the diary took the next 10 minutes to introduce Tom Riddle's experience in school tirelessly. Well, in his description, Tom Riddle is a good student with excellent character and academic performance, praised by many teachers. He is also the most popular person in Slytherin College. And Lockhart watched quietly without expressing any thoughts. The notebook seemed to know that these had no meaning to Lockhart. So, another line of text appeared in the notebook. Tom became the heir of Slytherin in the 4th grade and obtained a lot of knowledge about Slytherin. I was also born at that time. It can be said that I'm the product of Slytherin and Tom Riddle. Similar to the Sorting Hat, I have my own thoughts, but the rules limit me from deceiving anyone. Seeing this, Lockhart smiled with satisfaction. Finally, the other party gave his own personality. The series of essays he wrote in the notebook before were actually to give an impression of the Horcrux. He is a researcher who is full of thirst for immortality and power, and believes that runes are the best way to achieve his goals. Therefore, if the other party wants to be recognized by him, to be precise, he wants to obtain his research materials on immortality, or even wants to control himself. If he does not show his own value, he will not be able to communicate with Lockhart at all. Sure enough, a notebook that has the knowledge inheritance of Slytherin has its own thoughts and cannot lie. TSK 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 TSK. Such a person, no, such an item, if not used as a research assistant, it is simply outrageous to both humans and gods, and it is intolerable by heaven. Once he becomes a research assistant, won't everything about Lockhart be revealed in front of the notebook? Then, as if to push Lockhart to make up his mind, the notebook continued to write. Professor Lockhart, there is a soul illusion space in the notebook, which can simulate some small experiments, or practice spells to a certain extent. Tom has been using this function to practice spells, and do experiments before. However, to turn on this function, you need to pay a certain amount of magic and mental power. Do you need to turn on this function? Seeing this, Lockhart felt a wave of divine thoughts again. He quickly released a cautious but greedy and eager thought. Almost as soon as he detected these, he immediately took back the divine thoughts without leaving any trace. Lockhart couldn't help but feel a little emotional, worthy of being the Dark Lord. This wave of operations is really smooth. He said the corresponding words completely according to his emotional fluctuations. If you are not careful, you will easily fall into the routine of the Dark Lord. The mental power also enters the space in the notebook. Don't forget that there is a piece of Voldemort's soul fragment in it. If you say there is no trick in this, how did Ginny in the original book become a puppet? However, when he thought of the magic of Kamar-Taj and the soul shell, provided by the system, a smile rose at the corner of Lockhart's mouth. Chapter 97. The more it is banned, the more popular it becomes. Bang! Lockhart put the notebook back into the original box, and closed it tightly. Although he had the means to deal with the so-called soul illusion space proposed by the Horcrux before, he was not so hungry that he could not wait to enter directly. Now the Horcrux is the demander. If he doesn't take advantage of it and take out some high-value things, is it worth it for him to think about how to write his research experience into a copy? However, this series of performances of the Horcrux made Lockhart feel that all his efforts were worth it. This is a Dark Lord who can be compared with Dumbledore. Although he may still be in his youth, don't forget that he is still the heir of Slytherin. TSK TSK TSK. If he doesn't make good use of it, it will be a case of not taking what God has given him and suffering the consequences. Thursday morning. The autumn wind drives away the heat and brings coolness. From time to time, you can hear the sound of birds singing in the sky and occasionally see a few yellow leaves passing through the sky. Today, Lockhart gave himself a special holiday to let himself rest for a while and devote himself to research and teaching in a better state. He walked out of the castle, followed a path, passed through the greenhouse, past the Homping Willow, and came to the guard's hut next to the Forbidden Forest. If you ask where the most beautiful scenery of Hogwarts is, the Black Lake should be one of them. But if you ask the most interesting scene, the Forbidden Forest should be what many students yearn for. Although the school has expressly prohibited entry, there are still many young wizards who run in. Or this follows a theorem. The more it is forbidden, the more popular it is. Woof woof woof. Just as he approached, a big dog ran up and barked. Maybe he also knew Lockhart's identity, so he didn't bite him directly, but just stood in front of him and kept barking, as if calling for something. Soon, a burly half-giant with a thick beard walked out of the hut. Fang, shut up! Hagrid shouted loudly, and at the same time walked forward and rubbed the head of the big dog Fang very skillfully. Then, he looked at Lockhart standing opposite with some doubts. Professor Lockhart, what's up? He had been listening to Harry, Hermione, and Ron telling stories about Professor Lockhart recently. Well, in Harry's stories, Lockhart is usually a positive character, and the villain is usually Snape. Therefore, he subconsciously had a good impression of him. Nothing, Hagrid, I don't have classes today, so I thought I'd go for a stroll in the Forbidden Forest. Hearing this, Hagrid was stunned for a moment, and couldn't help but sigh that Professor Lockhart was indeed a well-known explorer. He entered the Forbidden Forest, and said he was just going for a stroll. Then by the way, I heard the headmaster talk about you doing in-depth research in the field of magical animals. It just so happens that I have just developed an all-chemical item here, which is a gift for you. As he spoke, Lockhart stretched out his right hand and gently rubbed the ring, and a dark green magic amulet quietly emerged. Then, while controlling the amulet to float into Hagrid's hands, he introduced, "This is the latest magic amulet I have researched. It has the ability to sense the emotions of animals and communicate with them in a simple way. I feel that it should be of great help to magical animal experts like you." Hearing Lockhart's introduction, Hagrid looked at the small amulet floating in his hand, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Harry, Ron was right. Lockhart was a local tyrant. However, a trace of worry flashed across Hagrid's face. The size of the amulet is perfect for ordinary people, but for a half-giant like himself, it is like a piece of shredded paper, a little small. Lockhart saw the distressed look on Hagrid's face, thought about it for a while, and understood Hagrid's embarrassment. After thinking about it, he waved his wand lightly, and 3 pieces of dark green paper flew out of his space bag, flying towards the amulet. At the same time, the magic amulet also flew like paper. When the two met, the 3 dark green papers were folded several times, wrapping the magic amulet in the core. Soon, a large magic amulet was formed. Then, the large magic amulet floated into Hagrid's hands again. This time, Hagrid felt particularly comfortable with the amulet. "Thank you, Professor Lockhart. I like your gift very much." Hagrid turned around and waved his strong arms, saying, "Professor, please come in. Please come in." Then, Lockhart followed Hagrid into the hut. After entering the hut, Lockhart frowned slightly. The house looked a little messy. Although it looked as if it had been cleaned up, it still gave people a dirty feeling. But Lockhart didn't say anything. He found a cleaner place to sit down and was about to observe the surroundings. He saw Hagrid handing him a cup. This cup seems a little dirty. It should have not been washed for a few days." Gently shaking the ring, the cup was clean as new. Soon, Hagrid took a pot of butterbeer and poured Lockhart a full cup and poured himself another cup. Sitting next to him, he whispered, "Professor Lockhart, I like the gift you gave me very much." Although Lockhart could clearly see that Hagrid was controlling his voice, he still felt that it was a bit loud. He was indeed a half-giant. After a few polite words, Lockhart wanted to get straight to the point. "Hagrid, I want to ask you something." Lockhart took a sip of the butterbeer in his cup and asked Hagrid, "What is it?" Hagrid asked, "Do you know where there is green velvet in the Forbidden Forest?" Seeing Hagrid's puzzled eyes, Lockhart continued to add, "I heard that the main food of the stork is green velvet. I want to try my luck and see if I can find it." Hearing this, Hagrid, who always cherished small animals, hesitated. He knew where to find green velvet, but when he heard what Lockhart meant, it seemed that he wanted to catch the stork. This made him feel a little hesitant. Lockhart saw Hagrid's hesitation and understood what he was worried about. He said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, Hagrid. I've been practicing some space spells recently. You should know that the bowlbird can increase the efficiency of practicing space spells. It won't have any effect on him. Besides, I just want to try my luck. It would be best if I can meet one, but it doesn't matter if I can't find it." At this point, Lockhart pretended to smile bitterly. "Even if I'm lucky and really meet one, I may not be able to catch it." Hearing this, Hagrid nodded and thought about it again and again. Maybe he had heard Harry and the others talk about Lockhart's character before, or the gift Lockhart gave him today. It reduced his worries a lot, and he slowly said, "Professor Lockhart, I know where to find green velvet grass. I've seen a bowlbird once before, but it was very sensitive and teleported away immediately." At this point, Hagrid showed a look of pity on his face. He had no resistance to the furry and very cute bowlbird. However, Lockhart's eyes lit up. He had only been trying his luck in his busy schedule. He had never expected that he would actually gain something today. It seemed that his trip today was not in vain. So he immediately asked, Hagrid, where did you meet him? Chapter 98 Hagrid and the Unicorn. Hogwarts, Forbidden Forest. Entering the Forbidden Forest, trees so thick that two people need to hug them stand all around. If you look from the ground, you can't see the blue sky at all. You can only see a layer of branches and leaves covering it. But it might be morning. The sun is high in the sky, and the sunlight shines through the gaps between the leaves and branches, bringing light to the Forbidden Forest. At this moment, Lockhart stepped on the grey soil on the ground, but he was a little surprised. The neighbor regarded the soil as not very wet, just slightly soft, and even dry. Stepping on it, you can feel the solid and hard land, and subconsciously feel a sense of security. Crash, crash. Lockhart looked at the sound of the branches shaking constantly caused by the huge Hagrid in front of him, and shouted loudly, Hagrid, how long will it take to reach the destination? Lockhart, it's almost there, just a little more walking. Hearing the voice from the front, Lockhart was a little speechless. It's almost there. After asking 4 or 5 times, Hagrid always replied like this. Why did he feel that, after asking 4 or 5 times, he would still say almost? Could it be that in any world, the guide would spontaneously master this skill? Sure enough, after walking for a while, the voice of almost still came from the front. In response, Lockhart remained silent, and prepared to follow silently. Who let Hagrid know the traces of the bull escape bird? Or, who let him want to practice space spells such as apparition through the bull escape bird? After walking for a distance, Hagrid suddenly turned his head back, and said to him in a very low voice, Lockhart, be careful, don't make too much noise. There is a unicorn in front, don't disturb her. Hearing this, Lockhart was a little excited. Although he didn't encounter the bull escape bird, unicorns are also rare. He hurriedly walked to the front carefully and looked ahead. In Lockhart's eyes, a beautiful creature emitting silver light emerged from the bushes in front. Its hair is pure silver, like an elegant and noble colt. The most conspicuous thing is the long spiral horn on its head. Hagrid, you have been in the Forbidden Forest for so many years. Do you know this unicorn? In response, Hagrid shook his head slightly, and said very softly, I know some unicorns, and the relationship is okay. But this is the first time I have met one. Be careful, unicorns are very wary of strangers, especially strange men. Hearing this, Lockhart nodded. That's right, whether it was in the previous life, or in this life from books. Unicorns are more intimate with pure girls. As for men, they are actually very ordinary. If they don't run away when they meet, it means that the relationship is okay. Woo, wow. Lockhart saw Hagrid next to him making a series of regular sounds, and he was immediately full of expectations. I hope Hagrid, the expert on magical animals, is powerful. I don't ask for the unicorn to be my own, but it should be okay to touch it. It could be that Hagrid himself has a great affinity for magical animals, or the amulet also played a role. The unicorn turned its head to look at Hagrid, but did not move, and continued to eat the grass. Seeing this, Hagrid showed a touch of joy, gently patted Lockhart on the shoulder, and signaled not to make any movements. In this regard, Lockhart naturally obeyed completely, and he also hoped that Hagrid would take him to touch the unicorn. Well, it would be better if he could pull a hair. Then he watched Hagrid carefully select some fresh green grass from the surrounding ground, gently placed it on his palm, and at the same time slowly put his palm to the mouth of the unicorn. It made a regular squeak sound, as if conveying some information. Maybe Hagrid had no ill intentions. The unicorn took a look, and then directly swallowed the fresh green grass in Hagrid's hand. This scene made Lockhart feel a little emotional. Hagrid is indeed a professional expert on magical animals. Everyone can feed grass, but it is a technical job to let the unicorn eat the grass in your hand with confidence. If it were me, I would probably cast a few spells directly. Can I catch it? Lockhart didn't know, as he had never fought with a unicorn. Soon, with Hagrid's rich experience, Lockhart saw that he had already started to touch the unicorn's hair gently. Seeing this, Lockhart also walked forward a few more steps cautiously. Looking at the unicorn who seemed to be enjoying the touch, Lockhart also reached out and tried to touch it gently. Maybe he also knew that the human in front of him was not hostile. He looked up at Lockhart and did not move. Seeing this, Lockhart also learned from Hagrid to find fresh grass around and feed it to the unicorn in front of him, and also tried to touch its fur that exuded silver light. Feeling the little magic fluctuations around the unicorn's hair brought him a sense of comfort. Lockhart squinted his eyes and thought secretly. It is said that unicorns have the ability to heal others, so the magic around him should have the same effect, but it is much weaker. However, if you really own a unicorn for a long time, I'm afraid that the efficiency of practicing healing spells will be much higher. As if sensing Lockhart's thoughts, the unicorn shrank back, as if avoiding Lockhart's touch. Seeing this, Lockhart smiled awkwardly and did not continue to touch it. Instead, he left a farther position and quietly watched how Hagrid fed the unicorn. He was just a little curious about the unicorn. If I get it, I'm lucky. If I lose it, I will die. This is still thanks to Hagrid's light, otherwise it would have run away as soon as it saw me. After a while, maybe the unicorn was full, and Hagrid also felt that the unicorn was about to leave, so he stopped gently stroking it. Then, under a ray of sunlight, Lockhart watched the man and the beast separate one after another. Inexplicably, this scene felt a little familiar. It was as if an adult was watching a child leave, and he was still a little reluctant, but still chose to let go. Lockhart suddenly realized that the reason why Hagrid was loved by magical animals was that in addition to loving magical animals enough, he also knew how to let go. He did not blindly confine all magical animals around him. If Hagrid really did that, the unicorns would probably have left Hagrid long ago. Hagrid, it's time to set off now. Let's go to where the stork is. After watching Hagrid come to his senses, Lockhart stepped forward and patted Hagrid's thigh, saying in a deep voice, "Okay, Lockhart. Let's set off now." With that, Hagrid continued to lead the way and set off towards the depths of the Forbidden Forest. Chapter 99, Bullbird and Mirror Space. Deep in the Forbidden Forest, there is a green grass field. Lockhart and Hagrid stood at the far end of the green grass field, holding a magic telescope in their hands, looking around. "Hagrid, do you think the stork will come today?" Hagrid turned his head and said to Lockhart, "It should come. It's the time for the stork to eat now. And this piece of green grass is the freshest and the largest in area. Generally speaking, it is definitely the best choice for the stork. I saw it here before." In response, Lockhart nodded silently and continued to look at the green grass field through the telescope. Although it was a bit boring, he still had some patience. After waiting for a while, Lockhart suddenly saw a bird-like creature emitting blue light on the emerald green lawn through the telescope. Carefully adjusting the focus of the telescope, it was the stork. The stork that came into view had most of its fur in dark blue and furry, and a pair of small eyes like sapphires instantly raised its appearance to a high level. It looked very cute. At this time, Hagrid next to him also noticed it. Just as he was about to move forward and try to make friends with the bull escape bird with his affinity, Lockhart quickly grabbed Hagrid and shook his head slightly at him, signaling him not to act. Hagrid couldn't be allowed to take action this time. He hadn't forgotten that the last time Hagrid mentioned the ethereal bull, he ran away when he saw him. If he ran away again this time, then he would have waited for half a day in vain. Besides, he had done a lot of preparations in advance for this capture. Looking at the bull escape bird swallowing the grass, he took out his wand and silently activated the magic items placed in advance on the green grass. In less than a second, a transparent ripple instantly covered the entire green grass. In an instant, the ethereal beast seemed to feel something. Just now, it flapped its wings and prepared to teleport away, but found that the scene did not change at all. It seemed that its ability had failed. Coo. Losing its best ability, the bull escape bird cried out in fear, flapping its wings continuously and floating in the air. Then it followed its intuition and flew quickly towards the depths of the green grass. Intuition told him that it was safer there. Hagrid saw the bull escape bird flying away. He lowered his head somewhat dejectedly. He still wanted to make friends with the bull escape bird, but the other party was too sensitive and flew away as soon as it found something wrong. However, the moment Hagrid lowered his head, he saw Lockhart making a strange gesture with his hands, and his whole body exuded strong magical fluctuations. He was immediately looking forward to it. He remembered that Lockhart had promised him that, if he really caught the bull escape bird, he would not only not hurt the other party, but also let him take care of the bull escape bird. Kakaka. Before he had time to think deeply, he suddenly seemed to hear the sound of mirror breaking. In an instant, Lockhart's figure disappeared, and at the same time, the bull escape bird also disappeared. This made Hagrid a little at a loss. Mirror space, green grass. Lockhart looked at the mirror space constructed by his magic, and nodded with satisfaction. To deal with magical animals with keen intuition like this, the best way is to limit their range of activities. If Spider-Man Peter didn't react in time, the entire Boson Hospital might have been turned into a closed place by him. But this time, he prepared in advance. First, he used magic items to limit the spatial movement ability of the bull bird, and then consumed a lot of magic power to build a closed mirror space. In this way, I believe that the bull bird cannot escape at all. In fact, Lockhart looked at the bull bird flying in the sky in front of him, and a bright smile appeared on his face. Coo coo coo. At this moment, the bull bird looked at the familiar and unfamiliar environment around it, and felt a faint strange atmosphere around it. It called out in a panic, and flew upwards at the same time, as if the higher it flew, the more it would feel safe. Bang! Soon, the bull bird flew to the top of the mirror space, and made a slight collision. This made it even more panicked, and it hurriedly flew towards the woods in the distance. Seeing this, Lockhart did not make any move, but just watched this scene silently. The mirror space constructed in Harry Potter is different from the mirror space in the Marvel world. The mirror space in the Marvel world, because of the existence of the mirror dimension, only consumes a little magic power, and can use the power of the dimension to construct and distort it at will. Although the mirror space in the Harry Potter world can also use the power of space, it consumes a lot of magic power. And every time you control the mirror space, you have to pay a lot of magic power. However, fortunately, the current mirror space itself is a closed space, and there will be no scenes like Peter running around in the Marvel world. After a while, Lockhart began to slowly walk towards the direction where the bull escape bird escaped. Looking at the scene of the bull escape bird flying around and fleeing in panic, Lockhart felt a little sorry. If it were the Marvel world, in such a closed space, it would be easy to capture it if it just kept shrinking. However, it doesn't matter, he has already thought of some means. With his thoughts turning, Lockhart began to gather his thoughts, and at the same time aimed at himself, and waved his wand lightly. Animal affinity. Communication of all things. Natural breath. Lockhart's shining. Auxiliary spells of light blow light rose from the tip of the wand, and enveloped Lockhart himself. At this moment, the bull escape bird also began to turn its head, and look at Lockhart at this moment. In its feeling, the creature that exuded a dangerous breath just now suddenly changed its breath. Coo. He sniffed gently, and felt that the other party's body exuded a pleasant smell, a bit like his favorite green velvet grass, or the smell of the forest. Moreover, his intuition told him that the other party had no ill intentions. Despite this, watching the other party slowly approaching him, the cautious bull bird still flew back, keeping a certain distance from Lockhart. Seeing this, Lockhart was not surprised. Based on his previous experience with the unicorn, he knew very well that magical animals with strong intuition like this were extremely sensitive. Before, he just had a slight thought, and the unicorn sensed it, and even avoided his touch. As for the bull bird, although he restrained himself from having any thoughts about catching it, the survival mode formed over a long period of time still made him very sensitive to himself. So, coo, coo, coo. Lockhart imitated the sound of the bull bird from his mouth, integrated his meaning into the sound, and conveyed it to the other party. This was naturally the latest spell developed by Lockhart, based on the rune communication. It can convey one's emotions, including some thoughts, to the other party through sound, contact and other means. Sure enough, Goo Goo. Hart heard the bull bird's somewhat puzzled voice, and after sensing the general meaning, he continued to reply, "I leave the price of magic green velvet grass." Freedom then, Lockhart communicated with the bull bird intermittently. At the same time, the distance between the man and the beast slowly began to close. Chapter 100 Hagrid's Joy. Hagrid saw Lockhart disappear. Although he was a little panicked and at a loss, he soon showed an expectant look on his face. Although he didn't know what spell Lockhart had cast, it was definitely related to the bull escape bird. Who knows, Lockhart might appear in front of him with the bull escape bird in a while. After thinking for a while, Hagrid glanced at the green grass not far away, walked forward, and began to pick some fresh green grass. He has begun to think about how to feed the bull escape bird. This is something he has been looking forward to. Since he became the guard of the Forbidden Forest, he has made a list of magical animals for himself. He plans to become good friends with every magical animal on the list. It seems that this time he can cross out another name on the list. Well, Lockhart's previous reputation as an explorer, plus the recent confessions of Harry and Ron. Of course, the most important thing is the magical spell that Lockhart just cast. It makes Hagrid full of confidence in this. After a while, Hagrid has picked a full basket of fresh green grass. Well, as a magical animal expert, a ranger in the Forbidden Forest, and a man who is determined to be friends with all magical animals, he naturally has a lot of tools for feeding magical animals. Then, Hagrid held a basket of green grass, and found a place to sit quietly. He was looking forward to watching the place where Lockhart disappeared. After a while, Hagrid was surprised to find that the place where Lockhart disappeared originally, sparks began to appear, and then a sparking portal emerged. Lockhart took a step forward, and sitting on his shoulder was the bull escape bird. Lockhart. The scene in front of him made Hagrid exclaim in a low voice. However, the appearance of the bull escape bird immediately diverted his curiosity about Lockhart's magic. He quickly walked up to him and whispered, "Lockhart, can you let me see this little cutie?" "Of course." Lockhart smiled and nodded. "Thanks to your help along the way. Here you are." As he spoke, Lockhart picked up the bull bird on his shoulder and handed it to Hagrid in front of him, while introducing it. "Hagrid, it will be called Cuckoo from now on." Hagrid carefully picked up the bull bird, nodded, and said to Cuckoo in front of him very gently, "Cuckoo, I'm Hagrid. I just picked some green velvet here. Do you want to try it?" As he spoke, Hagrid quickly picked up the fresh green velvet he had just picked and placed it in front of Cuckoo. "Cuckoo." The bull bird Cuckoo looked up at Hagrid, patted Hagrid's hands with his wings, and then lowered his head to eat. Hagrid was also a little touched by Cuckoo's cute expression just now. He immediately started chatting in a low voice. "Coo, let me tell you, I have it. Coo." Lockhart looked at Hagrid, who had completely forgotten his existence, and a funny expression appeared on his face. But he didn't say much, just watched the scene quietly. Compared with himself, Hagrid was the one who loved magical animals from the bottom of his heart. And although he also liked the cute bull bird Coo. But before, the most important thing was to use its power to practice space spells such as apparition. At the same time, he also wanted to further reduce the magic consumption of things like Kamar-Taj, portals, mirror space, etc. You know, the bull bird itself has the ability to increase space. In other words, each magical creature has its own special ability, and some can increase the owner's certain magical ability. Like a unicorn, if a healer has it, then there is no doubt that it will be more convenient to practice healing spells. The same is true for the bullbird in terms of space. In the previous mirror space, he signed a very fair magic contract with the bullbird Coo. It must be said that the intuition of the bullbird is very sensitive. He could distinguish between good intentions and bad intentions. So at the beginning, Lockhart did not think of signing a unilateral compulsory contract like a slave or pet contract. He did not forget the performance of the unicorn not long ago. If he really did this, he would probably end up losing more than he gained, and would make Cuckoo completely disgusted. At that time, even if he really caught him by force, it would be another matter whether the other party would admit to him. Don't let that happen. The other party would rather die than obey, and he could only sell his body for money. This disrupted Lockhart's plan. He was not short of money now, but the most lacking, and the most important thing, was magic practice. Otherwise, he would not have walked to the Forbidden Forest when he had nothing to do, and talked to Hagrid about the green velvet and the bull escape bird. Therefore, the contract signed by Lockhart and Cuckoo was very sincere. According to the contract, Cuckoo only needed to spend a certain amount of time with Lockhart every day to help him practice spells. then he could move around freely at other times, and even help it return to the Forbidden Forest. And Lockhart would ensure its safety, food, and other aspects. The bull escape bird was very satisfied with such a contract. Its intuition told it that the other party had not deceived it, and that there were many benefits. In addition, the other party smelled good, and had no malice, and it was slightly afraid of the unfamiliar environment around it. Naturally, it chose to sign it, and Lockhart was naturally very satisfied. He got everything he wanted. What else was there to be dissatisfied with? Although according to the contract, he did not have complete control over Gugu, the two were in an equal relationship. It could even be said to be a transaction. But he did not need these. Although he liked pets a little, his desire for control was not that strong. Of course, the more important thing was that once you got on his pirate ship, you could not run away. Hagrid's hut on the outskirts of the Forbidden Forest. Click. In the open space in front of the hut, a huge circular portal with sparks quietly emerged. Soon, Lockhart was the first to walk out of the portal, and sitting on his shoulder was the bull escape bird Gugu. Then, Hagrid was seen curiously walking out of the portal. Lockhart, is this apparition? Why is it different from what I've seen before? Hagrid turned around and looked at the huge portal in front of him and asked curiously. Originally, he wanted to return to his cabin along the same route, but Lockhart asked him to wait. As a result, he was surprised to find that Lockhart opened a portal that was almost the same size as him, and opposite the portal was his cabin. This was very different from the apparition he knew. In this regard, Lockhart shook his head and said, "This is another teleportation spell. Although the effect is similar to apparition, it is safer and the teleportation experience is better." At this point, Lockhart smiled. At least there will be no more scenes of physical discomfort. Hearing this, Hagrid was a little curious and asked with some anticipation, "Then can I learn it?" End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.